Chapter 1202. From the beginning of the light, the three people's eyes were all focused on the faint light. They watched the light get brighter and brighter, and finally became dazzling. The deep well, which was originally empty, finally showed its true appearance after Yang Chen's restriction gesture. A huge long sword, which almost extended from the bottom of the well to the mouth of the well, showed a bright phantom, and appeared in front of the three people out of thin air. The fierce and unparalleled sword qi could even be felt without contact. The sword qi in the sky was crisscrossing, and the top of the entire mountain seemed to suddenly become sharper. The birds that were still dozens of miles away didn't even dare to fly in this direction, as if there was something that made them extremely terrified. All of this, the three people in the cave couldn't know for the time being. Everyone's eyes were focused on getting the sword shadow, and no one wanted to look away. Yang Chen didn't make a move, and he didn't give any hints. Shanshan certainly wouldn't make a move. She just admired it at a close distance. However, the two of them didn't move, but the middle-aged scholar couldn't help it anymore and began to make a move eagerly. With a soft sound, Yang Chen, who had been standing there watching, suddenly appeared a sword tip. It pierced from Yang Chen's back and then came out from Yang Chen's chest. At the same time, the middle-aged scholar had already pointed at Shanshan. Yang Chen and Shanshan both had the same unbelievable eyes. They stared at the middle-aged scholar, and then their bodies softly collapsed to the ground. "I'll teach you a lesson. Don't trust everyone you meet in the future." The middle-aged scholar was quite happy. He didn't know how the two rookies cultivated to the Yuanying stage. They didn't even have any experience in the martial arts world. They were simply two hotheads who didn't care about the world. "Kid, you can go in peace. I will treat your beautiful wife as a favorite concubine," the middle-aged scholar said proudly, and his face couldn't hide the ecstasy on it. "You can take a good look at how I collect this sword qi before you die. It can be regarded as letting you die in peace." As the scholar spoke, he extended his hand and pointed at the tip of the huge longsword phantom while laughing out loud. A drop of blood immediately seeped out from the scholar's fingertip and stained the long sword. The sword's shadow extended from the bottom of the well all the way to the mouth of the well, so it was very easy to do this. Dripping blood to recognize the owner was the most basic method of establishing a connection with a magic weapon in advance. Compared to the control of divine sense, it was several levels lower. However, it was simple and effective. Although it was a temporary recognition, it could buy time for him to further refine it in the future. The middle-aged scholar wasn't someone who didn't know anything. He naturally knew how terrifying the sword qi was after being nurtured here for countless years. It was unrealistic for him to collect it in a short period of time, so he used this method. As long as the sword qi did not attack him for the time being, there was hope for him to subdue it in the future. As the scholar expected, when the huge longsword phantom saw the blood, it seemed to suddenly find its master. With a flash of light, all the phantoms drilled into the scholar's body from the place where the blood oozed out. After the sword qi entered his body, the scholar's expression became serious. He carefully stood where he was and felt the sword qi in his body. After a while, he revealed an expression of relief and a smile appeared on his face. "Ha ha ha ha!" The scholar began to laugh wildly again. He began to say to himself again because of ecstasy, 600 years, I finally got this sword qi. Ha 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 ha, 600 years, 600 years, ha 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 ha. After laughing wildly, the scholar looked down at Yang Chen and Shanshan, who were lying on the ground. He didn't hide his pride and joy. He laughed and said, "I still have to thank the two of you for solving the puzzle of 600 years for me and giving me a beautiful cauldron. This trip was not in vain." I forgot to remind the predecessor. In the arrogant laughter of the scholar, Yang Chen, whose chest was pierced by the flying sword, should have been dying, but he sat up as if nothing had happened. His voice was calm. Where was there any injury? This sword qi has been nourished in the place of golden qi for hundreds of thousands of years. The impurities in the golden qi will form a protective shell outside the sword qi. Moreover, these impurities are impure and very difficult to control. In the stunned eyes of the middle-aged scholar, Yang Chen got up with a smile and said slowly, "If I want to refine these golden qi impurities, it will take at least hundreds of years or longer, but there is a predecessor who volunteered to use his physical body as a trial, and also used his flesh and blood to attract it. It saved me a lot of effort. Thank you very much." Not only Yang Chen, but Shi Shanshan next to him also got up as if nothing had happened. There was no sign of being controlled. The performance of the two of them made the middle-aged scholar in the Deshang stage not dare to look at his own eyes. Was everything he saw fake? To be honest, Shi Shanshan was also a bit strange. Yang Chen's chest had obviously been pierced. How could he be so relaxed? However, Yang Chen had hinted to Shi Shanshan to wait and see. Shi Shanshan had absolute trust in Yang Chen and also acted. Now that she saw Yang Chen sitting up unscathed, her heart was naturally happy. Listening to Yang Chen's words, Shi Shanshan couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Everything was in the control of her husband. She didn't know what the middle-aged scholar, who thought that he controlled everything, was feeling at the moment. However, it was obvious that the scholar had no time to investigate why Yang Chen's chest was pierced. He had discovered the abnormality in his body, and his face began to become ugly. Ah! Mournful cries came from the scholar's mouth, as if he was suffering from some kind of pain. His body would constantly swell up and then collapse. Here and there, it kept appearing. Chi 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 chi, a continuous sound rang from the scholar's body, a bloody mouth appeared on the scholar's body, and then a bright light flew out of the bloody mouth, bringing a burst of blood mist. Those flying out of the light only flew a few steps away and was swallowed by a dragon's shadow that appeared from nowhere. The impurities of this supreme sword qi were Xiao Tian's favorite delicacy. It was simply a natural tonic. Especially after the nourishment of the Deshang stage master's flesh and blood, it was even more delicious. In addition to screaming, the middle-aged scholar could only watch his body being pierced by the sword qi, and the flying sword qi was swallowed by Xiao Tian. Every time the sword qi flew out, it would take away a lot of vitality of the scholar. Slowly, the voice of the scholar became lower and lower, and then there was no sound. Chapter 1203. Xiao Tian belched with satisfaction in the air, swallowed the last strand of sword qi impurities that flew out, and then hit Yang Chen's body and disappeared. The scene of Yang Chen's chest being pierced just now was that the other party's flying sword flew from the back into the mouth of Xiao Tian, and then Xiao Tian appeared in Yang Chen's chest in the fastest time and spat out the tip of the sword. On the surface, it was indeed like Yang Chen's chest was pierced. In fact, Yang Chen was not even hurt. As for Yang Chen's not bleeding, many people in the Jedan stage could do this, not to mention that Yang Chen was also a Yuanying stage master. However, the scholar thought that he had destroyed Yang Chen's vitality, so he deliberately did not make up for it, but let Yang Chen watch the process of him refining the sword qi, in order to show his own pride. Not only did he not harm others, but he also harmed himself. Before the scholar died, he might have thought of this sentence. Especially after hearing these explanations from Yang Chen, it was estimated that this unwillingness was even more obvious. Yang Chen really intended that if this guy was tactful, everyone would benefit from it. Although the sword qi body couldn't be given to him, the impurities of the golden qi outside, if he could refine it, it would also be a rare good thing. But now, the benefits were given to Xiao Tian first. Without the outer golden shell, the body of the sword qi was finally revealed. At the bottom of the well, Yang Chen jumped down and easily took out the scabbard that contained the sword qi and handed it to Shi Shanshan. The real pure Yang sword qi was not so long at all, it was less than 3 feet long, thin as a gossamer, shining with some faint light, constantly wandering in the scabbard. Just from its appearance alone, it was much worse than the impurities of the gold chi. It did not have a soaring aura, nor did it have a glorious appearance. It looked like a thin earthworm. The scabbard also looked very ordinary. It was made of metal and looked very ancient, but that was all. It didn't have a gorgeous appearance, nor did it have a threatening aura. If it was someone else, no matter who saw it, they would at most treat it as an antique scabbard. Who would take it seriously? However, Sher Shanshan was not the kind of shallow person who would judge a book by its cover. With her husband, Yang Chen, who was almost omniscient, there was nothing good that could escape his discerning eyes. Even with Sher Shanshan's composure, she couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat when she received the scabbard. Shanshan, this is a pure yang sword qi that Ancestor Lu left for his friend back then. It is indestructible and has an unparalleled aura. It suits your sword Dao. Yang Chen finally told Sher Shanshan about the origin of this sword qi. In the future, your cultivation will be to refine and subdue this sword qi. I believe that from now until you ascend to the spiritual realm, you will continue this process for many years. This was not Yang Chen underestimating Sher Shanshan's ability, but this sword qi was indeed so powerful. The foundation left behind by Ancestor Lu, coupled with the fact that it had been nurtured for hundreds of thousands of years in this gold qi-dense land, to put it bluntly, let alone the sword qi left behind by Ancestor Lu, even a fart would be the most powerful fart in the mortal world, let alone the supreme pure yang sword qi. Similarly, Shanshan, this is the last time your husband interferes with your cultivation. Yang Chen said very formally and seriously, the direction of your cultivation in the future will depend on you. I believe that one day you will become my pride. This was not the first time Yang Chen had said this, but now that Sher Shanshan had obtained the sword qi, she truly understood the value of everything that Yang Chen had arranged for her. Sher Shanshan could not help but feel a warm current in her eyes. The warmth in her heart was a happiness that Sher Shanshan had never felt from her master in the sect. Husband, aren't you afraid that after I refine this sword qi, you won't be able to beat me? Fortunately, Sher Shanshan has always been in a good state of mind, and she quickly controlled her emotions. She buried her head in Yang Chen's embrace, and felt this happiness closely before asking jokingly, "How could it be?" Yang Chen lowered his head and kissed his wife gently, then said with a smile, "You refine the sword qi, of course this scabbard belongs to me. In the future, you will still not be able to escape from your husband's hands." A scabbard that could accommodate pure yang sword qi, as long as one was not a fool, they would definitely know that this was a good thing. Sher Shanshan refined the sword qi, her body was the scabbard, so naturally she would not use it. The ownership of this scabbard, needless to say, it must belong to Yang Chen. Moreover, if this kind of seventh metal holy object was added to the immortal beheading blade, the quality of the immortal beheading blade would definitely be improved. If he refined the space connection point in the future, with the addition of Shao Tian, Yang Chen could not imagine who else could resist his immortal beheading blade. "Let's go, there is going to be a drastic change here," Yang Chen gently reminded Sher Shanshan. Sher Shanshan still stayed in Yang Chen's arms, and did not want to move. Yang Chen smiled, summoned the shuttle, and then quickly rushed into the sky. Shortly after the shuttle left, the entire area of thousands of miles began to shake violently. Countless mountain peaks, in the shaking of the earth, fell in pieces and collapsed. It was not an exaggeration to describe it as being turned upside down. Fortunately, there were no living things at all, otherwise, it was not known how many people would be in distress. The situation of the mountain collapsing lasted for more than an hour before stopping. When everything was calm, the original scene of the mountain peaks had undergone earth-shaking changes and directly became a large pit covering thousands of miles. Rain clouds began to gather in the sky. This was something that had never happened before. Then, raindrops began to fall quickly. Countless water droplets fell from the sky and gathered in this huge pit. The water level rose a little bit, and the surrounding area also had rivers that changed their course and flowed to this area. Soon, a lake was formed here. It was believed that over time, this place would become a huge lake. The river would bring the creatures in the water, and the surrounding spiritual power seemed to be supplemented and slowly returned to normal. As long as a few years passed, this place would be full of vitality. Maybe there would be cultivators coming here to cultivate, but these were all in the future. Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan no longer paid attention to this. Yang Chen directly returned to the sea with Shi Shanshan and plunged into the bottom of the sea. After placing the Dragon Palace, the two entered the Dragon Palace. On the huge East China Sea map, Yang Chen chose several places with the richest spiritual veins and directly placed a large amount of 7th metal true essence liquid on them. Then he let Shi Shanshan's whole body soak in the 7th metal true essence liquid and sat on the black jade futon and began to guide Shi Shanshan to refine this pure yang sword qi. Chapter 1204. Shi Shanshan's aptitude for cultivation was a genius among geniuses. The innate gold spirit root was full value. Later, after Yang Chen introduced the acquired spirit root, she tested it again, and the acquired gold spirit root was also full value. This kind of innate and acquired aptitude was the same kind of single attribute of the 5 elements, so that when she cultivated the metal attribute cultivation method, it was absolutely like adding wings to a tiger. It was not known how many advantages there were compared to the ordinary aptitude. But even so, it was not so easy to refine the supreme pure yang sword qi left by Ancestor Lu at the peak of the middle Yuanying stage. If there was no Yang Chen's support of the spiritual veins and 7th metal true essence liquid at all costs, it would not be so easy to reach the Dishang stage. Even with the unsparing support of Yang Chen, Shi Shanshan still had to pay a sufficient price, one of which was unimaginable pain. The seemingly small earthworm sword qi was introduced into the body of Shi Shanshan, and then began to wreak havoc in Shi Shanshan's body. Ancestor Lu's sword qi was not something that could be easily subdued. If it was as simple as a drop of blood or forcefully inserting one's soul to refine it, then it would be a little too simple. Shi Shanshan has already swallowed a 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, and there was another one in her mouth. As soon as there was something wrong, she would swallow it immediately. Yang Chen, who was next to her, had already prepared at least hundreds of 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills, so that Shi Shanshan could be replenished at any time. After the sword qi was guided from the scabbard into the body of Shi Shanshan, the sizzling sound did not stop. On the body of Shi Shanshan, there would be a small hole from the inside to the outside, with a thin stream of blood. The medicinal effect of the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was extremely strong, and Shi Shanshan's current body could fully withstand such a potency. As soon as the wound appeared, it would immediately recover, and then the wound would appear in other places, and then the medicinal effect of the medicinal pill would continue to work, and the cycle would start again, as if there was no end. To Shi Shanshan, the whole process felt like she was being cut into pieces. Her beautiful body was like a broken sack that had been pierced like a sieve. She didn't know when she would fall apart. This kind of pain, Shi Shanshan, the proud girl, closed her mouth tightly, did not say a word, and silently endured. She still clearly remembered the words that Yang Chen had said to her. With your current cultivation, you don't even need to think about refining this supreme pure yang sword qi. To make it recognize you as its master and stop attacking your body is the biggest goal this time. Yang Chen said at the time, in the process you will suffer unprecedented pain. Believe me, it will be a more painful process than little snow being entangled by the blood demon vine. It is not an exaggeration to cut your bones into pieces. If you're not ready, then wait until you're ready. Don't force yourself. With Shi Shanshan's character, how could she shrink back at this moment? She refused Yang Chen's kindness to let her practice for a while and insisted on starting the process of recognizing her as its master. In fact, this was also a little trick of Yang Chen. For Sher Shanshan, a cold and proud cold plum fairy, provocation was always more effective than encouragement, especially when she was compared with Sun Qingxue. Of course, it was her husband, Yang Chen, who said this, which added fuel to the fire. What Yang Chen wanted was Sher Shanshan's indomitable momentum, which was in line with the nature of the sword qi. Sher Shanshan, who was stimulated, was more likely to be recognized by the sword qi. The physical pain made Sher Shanshan think of her husband's words more and more, and her spirit was more tenacious. Anyway, there was the constant healing of the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, and there was also the constant supplement of the 7th metal true essence liquid, coupled with the continuous spiritual power support of several East Sea spirit veins. Sher Shanshan did not even do the action of clenching her teeth, she just endured it. At the same time that the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill worked, the 7th metal true essence liquid that was soaked outside Sher Shanshan's body was also rapidly absorbed by an invisible shadow, slowly decreasing, and in a short while, it was reduced by half. Yang Chen has been paying attention to the changes around Sher Shanshan's body. Seeing this, he did not hesitate to immediately fill up the 7th metal true essence liquid. To be on the safe side, Yang Chen even threw a few pieces of 7th metal spirit crystals into it, and at the same time, he attracted a few spirit veins on the sea map. The Dragon Palace was strong enough. Around the two people's bodies, Xiao Tian was waiting outside happily. As soon as he saw the sword qi breaking out of Sher Shanshan's body, he immediately rushed up like he saw some delicious food, opened his mouth, and the small sword qi was swallowed by him. Outside the Dragon Palace, it was another scene at the moment. Although he had refined the treasure vault of the Dragon Palace, it looked like an inconspicuous seabed stone. However, on the stone, there was an exaggerated phantom of a giant sword that was thousands of feet long, shining brightly. The seawater in the giant sword phantom has long been squeezed out by an unknown force, forming the appearance of an air giant sword. The light emitted illuminated the dark bottom of the sea that was more than 10,000 feet deep. However, no fish or shrimp dared to approach this side. The original seabed creatures here had long been cut into pieces by the moment when this giant sword phantom appeared. At the beginning, Yang Chen chose the deepest part of the sea, which was more than 10,000 feet deep. With the two Dragon Clan magic weapons, the sea-pouring jasper cup and the flying shuttle, it was easy to achieve this. Fortunately, the phantom of the giant sword did not appear on the sea, otherwise it would be another earth-shattering excitement. Before the beginning, Yang Chen had already cleaned up the surrounding hundreds of miles of the sea, and there was basically no existence of the sea monster race. Therefore, although the phantom of the giant sword was very exaggerated on the bottom of the sea, no powerful guy had found it. Everything was carried out in secrecy, which was also the purpose that Yang Chen wanted. Since he has the memory of his previous life, he could quietly take away the good things without disturbing anyone. Why should he make a big noise and attract a lot of greedy guys to fight for it? Yang Chen was not afraid of fighting with others. In fact, whether it was the 3rd Fire True Essence Medicine Nourishing Gourd or this time's Pure Yang Sword Qi, there were outsiders who discovered and fought for it, but they were all small-scale. It was only the 3rd Fire True Essence that was known to the world. If he could make a fortune in silence, Yang Chen would never put himself in the eye of the storm. Sher Shanshan still followed the method that Yang Chen taught herself, constantly wrapping her spiritual awareness around the pure Yang sword qi, completely ignoring the pain of her body being pierced. There was only one goal in front of her, that was to let the pure Yang sword qi accept herself, and everything else would be solved by Yang Chen. The 2nd-grade human immortal spiritual awareness was the key that Yang Chen felt that Sher Shanshan could control the pure Yang sword qi. Chapter 1205. If someone saw this scene in front of them, they would never believe the price of collecting this pure Yang sword qi. Needless to say, Sher Shanshan's physical pain, the realm of the human immortal 2nd-grade spiritual awareness, was not something that anyone could achieve. Perhaps only the great elders of some big sect who have been retreating to guard the sect could do it. But even so, those people may not be able to successfully collect this pure yang sword qi. The 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, it could almost be said to be a powerful elixir that could cure any injury before ascension, and it was used for hundreds of pills. Not to mention ordinary sect, even the pill cauldron sect, which specialized in alchemy, did not have such a big deal. Except for Yang Chen, no one in the mortal world could come up with it. Not to mention, there were at least 10 spiritual veins under Shi Shanshan's body. Each spiritual vein could almost be comparable to the spiritual veins in the 5 major sect. Even if it was the 5 major sect, it was impossible to find so many spiritual veins just for one person to use. Not to mention the 7th metal true essence liquid and the 7th metal spirit stone, the ordinary sects had a few caddies of them and it was already a collection, and Shi Shanshan was now using it, not to mention bathing. Even if it was used to fill the swimming pool, the 7th metal true essence liquid was enough to fill dozens of swimming pools. This luxury price, if Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei of the Green Jade Immortal Island knew about it, it was not known what they would think. People with this kind of money, would they look at the small sect they controlled? The forest was big, there were all kinds of birds. Sure enough, even the Green Jade Immortal Island was no exception. The reason why the 7th metal true essence liquid was used was because the last time Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were abolished by Hu Qianyi, Shi Shanshan soaked her body in the 7th metal true essence liquid to recover. The body has been completely transformed by the 7th metal true essence solution. At this moment, this 7th metal true essence solution, one is to cooperate with the Lingji mushroom jade pill to repair the body of Shi Shanshan, the other purpose is to more effectively contain the sword qi. Of course, if he wanted to absorb this 7th metal true essence solution, he must absorb it from the body of Shi Shanshan. This was also an important medium for the sword qi to recognize Shi Shanshan faster. While observing the situation on Shi Shanshan's side, Yang Chen was already holding the scabbard containing the pure yang sword qi in his hand. For such an ancient magic treasure to be able to preserve pure yang sword qi for hundreds of thousands of years, it definitely had its own uniqueness. What's more, such a gung metal magic weapon was Yang Chen's first choice to improve the quality of the immortal beheading saber. With Yang Chen's spiritual awareness cultivation base of the human immortal 9th grade, it was enough to support his multitasking. In fact, Yang Chen's experience in the mortal world, plus the years after, had been more than 100 years. His cultivation base had been stuck in the middle stage of the Yuanying stage, not because he did not cultivate, but because he had been continuously doing several things at the same time. Refining the space point of the demon continent, this has never stopped, and it has been completed by almost 30%. He believed that in another 200 years, it would be enough for Yang Chen to refine the space connection point of the demon continent. At that time, it would be integrated into the immortal beheading saber, and the immortal beheading saber would have the ability to cut through space. Of course, after refining the space point of the demon continent, there was still an entrance to the immortal beheading platform to be refined. He believed that it would take more time, but the effect after refining would also be more terrifying. Refining medicinal pills, this was the key skill that made Yang Chen famous, and Yang Chen has been continuing. The fire of the profound spirit furnace has never been extinguished. Inner sensing pill, appearance pill, these are all medicinal pills that are needed in large quantities. The questioning inner heart pill and the 100-year pill are also needed. Moreover, these medicinal pills are more difficult to refine and take more time. For such a long time, Yang Chen has barely been able to provide the reserves and daily consumption of the sect. Most importantly, Yang Chen is still constantly exploring the experience of refining various basic medicinal pills. The fire of another ordinary alchemy furnace has also not been extinguished, and it has been constantly producing various low-level medicinal pills or failed dregs. Swallowing and fusing various kinds of fire seeds, this was the only way for the yin-yang heaven-burning fire to upgrade, and it has never stopped. Fire seeds below the 5th grade, there is one swallowed one, and now Yang Chun has been constantly fusing and absorbing the 5th grade fire seed. However, after reaching the 5th grade stage, each kind of fire seed has extremely rich characteristics, and each of them is not so easy to absorb. The Sun True Fire and Moon True Fire may be the easiest. In fact, no matter which kind, the Netherworld Fire, Nanmingli Fire and so on, they all need to be carefully operated. Most of Yang Chen's energy is on refining the space points of the demon continent and alchemy, and the absorption of the fire seeds here is a lot slower. Daily cultivation can't be less. The daily maintenance of the magic weapon, the heavenly spirit treasure refining secret art, the earth fiend sacrificial formation secret art, the universe treasure raising secret art, the core life source magic weapon and several magic weapons of the dragon clan, the refining of the medicine garden is done once a day. The absorption of the demonic chi on the demon bead is also ongoing, and this is not counting the time when Yang Chun seems to be reading various types of jade slips when he has nothing to do. All of this is supported by Yang Chen's spiritual awareness of the human immortal 9th grade. All those who look at Yang Chun as if he has never cultivated can't imagine that Yang Chun has never stopped cultivating. Of course, because of so many reasons, Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation base has not been growing rapidly, which is also a reasonable necessity. However, in the eyes of others, this must be because Yang Chen's cultivation base is not hard enough, which is understandable. Alchemists had never relied on their cultivation to make a name for themselves. Now there are two more things, one is to take care of Shirshanshan, and the other is to integrate the scabbard into the immortal beheading blade after pondering the refining method of the scabbard. Speaking of which, the immortal beheading blade was originally a sword sheath, relying on the sword's soul to exert its power. In essence, it was just multiple scabbards, and this scabbard complemented each other and could increase the power more. Time passed quickly, and 2 years passed in the blink of an eye at the bottom of the sea. On average, Shirshanshan has to take a 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill every day, absorbing almost equivalent to a swimming pool of 7th metal true essence and a dozen pieces of 7th metal spirit stones. Not to mention anything else, just the washing of the 7th metal true essence in the body was enough to make Shirshanshan's 7th metal true essence so strong that it made people speechless. Gradually, the number of wounds on his body began to decrease. In the beginning, more than a dozen wounds would appear at the same time. Slowly, the number decreased to a few, and then one. Then, after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, an hour, a few hours, a day, 2 days. Now, a wound would only appear once every half a month. Yang Chun finally felt relieved. The sword chi has gradually recognized Shirshanshan in the past 2 years, and with a little more effort, it could complete the final master recognition procedure. Chapter 1206. Yang Lan's mood has been looking forward to it recently. The Sex Heaven and Earth Infinite Spirit Suppressing Formation has long been completed, and it is slowly completing the energy injection stage. This stage will take at least 300 years. After 300 years, he would be able to enjoy the benefits of the special formation eye. The reason why he was so looking forward to it was that Yang Lan knew from Li Liheng's mouth that apart from the core elders and Li Liheng, no one else in the sect knew about this special formation eye. Of course, now he also had to add Yang Lan and Yang Lan. If Yang Lan was still doubting whether the simple improvement of cultivation could work, then the ascension of Mu Mingyuan of Chunyang Palace within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense gave him the most realistic example. Even Mu Mingyuan, who had been abolished, could ascend in the day. With Yang Lan's qualifications, naturally, it was needless to say. This was a shortcut that God wanted to give his brother and sister to ascend in the day. With this special formation eye, as long as they used it carefully, their cultivation would be greatly improved, and then it would not be a problem to become an elder of the sect. As long as they had the status, what could they not have? As for Yang Chen, that kid, didn't he want him to die however he wanted? No, Yang Chen has been arrogant for a long time. Not only did he have the 100-year pill, but he also heard that he had recently made a 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, which directly helped the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade, Immortal Island cross his tribulation. If he was allowed to develop like this, wouldn't it be more and more difficult to deal with in the future? Moreover, with the 100-year pill, it was simply a provocation against the special formation Eye of the Heaven and Earth Infinite Spirit suppressing formation. The original unique resource of Taishaman has become a chicken rib. How could it be tolerated? Even without Yang Lan doing it, as long as in the process of serving Li Liheng on a daily basis, he would lightly say a little bad things about Yang Chen. Over time, Li Liheng would hate Yang Chen to the bone. Although Li Liheng has made a heart oath not to use the special formation Eye, it does not mean that no one in the sect will use it in the future. What if someone has a situation like Mu Mingyuan, letting Chunyang Palace develop more and more, and Yang Chen become more and more powerful, which is obviously not in the interest of Taishanmen. Intentionally or unintentionally, Li Liheng had also mentioned this to the core elders and sect masterly. Like Yang Lan's strategy, he would not bite Yang Chen, but when it was time to hit him, he would not let it go. Therefore, although the senior officials of Taishaman had not made up their minds to kill Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace, they did not have a good impression of Yang Chen. Everyone has never seen the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, and the news came from the Green Jade Immortal Island. However, the people present at the time were all the core high-level members of the Green Jade Immortal Island. It was in vain to get specific information from their mouth. Outsiders only got bits and pieces of news from the mouths of the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island who were lucky enough to watch the ceremony that day. As for the effect of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, no one knew. Just this kind of hearsay news was enough to make people tempted. Tantai Ro's situation was clear to many people. In fact, Sect Master Li of Taishaman was in a similar situation. The main reason was that the sect's control consumed most of his thoughts, so he encountered an insurmountable bottleneck in his cultivation, trapped in the peak Yuanying stage, unable to enter the Deshang stage. Not only Taishaman, but in fact, many sect members were like this. As soon as they heard that the Lord of Tantai had broken through with the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, countless people started to use their brains. Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan went out to gain experience and couldn't find anyone. Those who had a good relationship with the Green Jade Immortal Island naturally came to the Green Jade Immortal Island to ask for news. Some people could be refused by the Green Jade Immortal Island, but some people were obviously not suitable to be concealed. As a result, more news of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill came out. The 7 emotions pill was for the Yuanying stage, and the 6 desires pill was for the Deshang stage. They were all good things that could hone the state of mind. Countless people began to look for the whereabouts of Yang Chen, and the secret compasses that the Taishaman had lost in the past became the most sought-after goods. Taishaman had now learned to be clever. This unique resource could only be controlled by the sect and could not be leaked out. Regardless of whether they found Yang Chen to please or to kill him, it was more beneficial to have exclusive control than to share it with others. Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan did not know how much of a storm the outside world had stirred up because of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill that he made for Shi Shanshan. Now Shi Shanshan had reached the final moment of collecting the sword qi. There could be no mistakes, otherwise all the previous efforts would be wasted. Shi Shanshan was really a genius, and her perception was excellent. Another thing was that she was not greedy, neither greedy for property nor greedy for time. If she could lay a good foundation, she would never do it overnight. This also made it rare for Shi Shanshan to encounter trouble in her cultivation, especially when she had Yang Chen by her side. In the final step of collecting the sword qi, Shi Shanshan adopted such an attitude. She would do it slowly and surely, and not be greedy. This sword qi could save Shi Shanshan at least hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation time in the future. Therefore, she had to be as cautious as she could at the beginning. Shi Shanshan knew this better than anyone else. Under Yang Chen's protection, Shi Shanshan finally succeeded in getting the recognition of the supreme pure Yang sword qi. The sword qi that had existed for tens of thousands of years stayed in Shi Shanshan's body obediently, treating Shi Shanshan as its future owner. There was no more sword qi leakage. But even so, at the very last moment, the supreme pure Yang sword qi still erupted completely once more. The gigantic sword phantom outside the Dragon Palace, which was tens of thousands of feet long, went completely crazy at that moment. The sharp sword light pierced through the sky, almost splitting the sky in half. Within thousands of miles, all the living creatures felt the power that made them tremble. Countless weak demonic beasts curled up into a ball and shivered when they felt the power of the sword light. And within this range, the magic treasures of hundreds of unknown cultivators were all shattered by the sword qi in the air, and the sound of explosions was endless. Many people were scared by this sudden illusory attack, and fled far away. There were only a few cultivators who dared to stay in that area. Fortunately, the sword qi only exploded once and did not continue. After the explosion, the sword qi stayed in Shi Shanshan's body, and stayed obediently. Shi Shanshan stood up, and her face was filled with an uncontrollable happy smile. Even the cold plum fairy, who was usually cold, couldn't help but be ecstatic when she got such a great benefit. Her happy expression was overflowing. "Thank you, husband." After getting up, Shi Shanshan didn't even care about her physical discomfort and threw herself into Yang Chen's arms and said emotionally. Chapter 1207. Shi Shanshan couldn't help but thank Yang Chen. If there was no Yang Chen, Shi Shanshan would not even have the opportunity to contact this supreme sword qi, let alone collect and refine it. Although there was still no sign of refining, with the current foundation, it meant that in the future, Shi Shanshan's achievements had been more brilliant than in her previous life. Shi Shanshan wouldn't know this. She only knew that without Yang Chen there would be no such thing. Not to mention the whereabouts of the sword qi, just the consumption in the process of collecting it was not something that any sect could come up with. Even the Green Jade Immortal Island, one of the 5 major sects, was no exception. Not to mention anything else, the 7th metal true essence liquid used to cultivate the sword qi, it used at least millions of gene. If converted into spirit stones, selling the entire Green Jade Immortal Island may not be able to make up for it. This was not counting the massive spiritual power consumed in the process, and hundreds of 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills. The 5th-grade medicinal pill, the existence of the highest grade in the mortal world, each of them was a peerless elixir that could allow her to heal in time in the process of collecting it. Without a close relationship with Yang Chen, who could make Yang Chen use such a big deal? Compared with the huge price that Yang Chen used to collect the sword qi, the small monthly income of the Green Jade Immortal Island was really not worth Shi Shanshan's anger. But Yang Chen, in order to vent her anger, directly brought down the core elder. How could it not make Shi Shanshan happy? Since she met Yang Chen, the little bits and pieces along the way made Shi Shanshan always fascinated. In this life, her body and mind could only be firmly controlled by this enemy, and she could no longer escape. Between us, husband and wife, is there still a need to say thank you? Yang Chen held Shi Shanshan in his arms, and he was also very happy. Shi Shanshan had found a suitable cultivation direction, and Yang Chen had settled the karma of the immortal who had left behind the sword qi. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, Yang Chen's state of mind became more and more harmonious. After lingering for a long time, the 2 of them once again embarked on their journey back to the sect. On the other hand, Shi Shanshan didn't seem to want to leave Yang Chen's embrace for even a moment. She just stayed in Yang Chen's embrace. She didn't look the slightest bit like the cold plum fairy that was rumored to be. Once out of the sea, Yang Chen's shuttle stopped. Shi Shanshan, who was intoxicated by the warmth in Yang Chen's arms, immediately sensed something. However, Shi Shanshan was too lazy to check with her own divine sense. Anyway, her husband was here. Who could hide from the divine sense of a grade 9 human immortal? Who is it? Shi Shanshan really didn't want to be separated from Yang Chen. She curled up in Yang Chen's arms like a kitten and asked without raising her head. Tao Junkie of the Taishanmen, Shi Wushuang of the Greenwood Fairy, and some miscellaneous people. Yang Chen couldn't help but reply with a wry smile. These two women would actually block him here, which made Yang Chen very surprised. Fortunately, the 5 Murong sisters did not appear at the same time. Otherwise, Yang Chen didn't know how to explain it to Shi Shanshan. However, it was normal to think about it. If Tao Junkie wanted to know the whereabouts of Yang Chen, it should be the easiest. With Li Liheng's divine sense, he couldn't escape the pursuit of the Taishanmen. Shi Wushuang probably also got the tracing compass from the hands of the Taishanmen. It was not surprising that she appeared here. Tao Junkie and Shi Wushuang did come here with the tracing compass. However, after arriving at this sea area, the compass in their hands was directly destroyed by a 5 elements sword qi, leaving no trace. Although they could no longer track the whereabouts of Yang Chen, they could be sure that Yang Chen was in this area. They rushed here more than a year ago. Of course, their purpose was to find Yang Chen and the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. However, no matter what they tried, there seemed to be an area that no one could get close to. As soon as they got close, there would be a feeling of being scared out of their wit. No one could tell what was inside. Although the giant sword phantom was big, no one could see it clearly if they didn't get close. There were many people who appeared in this area with them, but those people were not in the same way. Everyone went their own way and did not interfere with each other. It was rare that they did not fight. There was one thing that everyone had in common. These people were all holding a tracing compass to track Yang Chen. Basically, they were released by Li Liheng to take revenge on Yang Chen last time. Of course, everyone's conclusion was the same. Yang Chen was in this huge sea area. Unfortunately, he was only in this mountain, deep in the clouds. After wandering in this sea area for almost 2 years, when everyone's patience was almost exhausted, the sudden outbreak of sword qi directly crushed the dreams of countless people. None of the tracing compasses in their hands were left, and the sharp aura also completely shattered the last bit of luck in the hearts of many people. Seeing that the situation was not good, many people turned around and fled, not daring to stay any longer. There were less than 10 people left on the sea, and they were all famous experts. After waiting for Yang Chen on the sea for 4 to 5 days, everyone finally found Yang Chen's shuttle appearing from the bottom of the sea. The moment they saw the shuttle appear, Tao Junkie and Shi Wushuang even had an indescribable feeling of relief. Perhaps, in their hearts, there was a moment when they were still worried that Yang Chen would also be injured by that sword qi. What are they doing here? Shi Shanshan asked casually and curiously. She was only focused on cultivation and didn't pay attention to some troublesome things like fighting for power and profit, but it didn't mean that she didn't understand. She immediately guessed the answer. They want the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill? The sect behind them. Yang Chen said with a bitter smile. It doesn't matter if it's appropriate to rope in and make friends with other sects. As soon as Shi Shanshan opened her mouth, Yang Chen was shocked. However, you can't let Tao Junkie of Taishanmen succeed. At worst, you can eat everything and pretend to be polite. You can't let Taishanmen get any substantial benefit. Yang Chen seemed to not know Shi Shanshan and looked at his wife, who was most concerned about cultivation. Since when did Shi Shanshan have such thoughts? Is this still the cold plum fairy in my heart? I'm just too lazy to use these brains. It's not that I don't understand. Shi Shanshan didn't have to look to know Yang Chen's current expression. This kind of intrigue, even if she was too lazy to pay attention to it before, but when she was in the mortal world, she listened to the stories told by those palace servants for decades. Even if she didn't understand it, she became an expert after decade. Eat everything and not recognize people? Yang Chen couldn't help but shake his head. You said it easily. If I treat you like this, can you give up? Can the Green Jade Immortal Island give up? Or do you think that Taishamen are easier to deceive than the Green Jade Immortal Island? Then let them all be loyal to you. Shi Shanshan didn't care too much. She just continued to say, I know, you must have arranged the direction of cultivation for Sister Gao and Aling. We will not be able to take care of you for a long time. Let them serve you for us during this time. Chapter 1208. Shi Shanshan's words made Yang Chen shake his head for a while. Are you kidding me? I can't avoid it. Last time I accidentally left a lot of trouble for myself. Now I don't know how to solve it. How can I keep them around me? Isn't it messy enough? However, people are already around, and they obviously know the whereabouts of Yang Chen. If you don't say hello, it is still a bit rude after all. So, Yang Chen took Shi Shanshan's little hand, put away the shuttle and appeared in front of Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. The intimate situation of the two holding hands was seen in the eyes of Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. After all, it made the two women a little uncomfortable. But Shi Shanshan was Yang Chen's wife. No matter how intimate they were, others couldn't say anything. The cultivators did not put the secular etiquette in their eyes. Greetings to the two fairies. Yang Chen saluted Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. After all, he was a man, and it was polite to greet each other with courtesy. Yang Chen just saluted and the faces of the four people present changed at the same time. Hundreds of 10th water divine thunder suddenly appeared around everyone, and it looked like it was about to explode in an instant. With a move of his mind, the golden bell appeared outside Yang Chen's body and was about to block all these attacks. Suddenly, he found that Shi Shanshan beside him had already made a move. Don't! Yang Chen only had time to shout this sentence, and the sword qi in Shi Shanshan's body came out and instantly cut all the 10th water divine thunder that appeared in half. Even if the 10th water divine thunder had reached the verge of eruption, there was still no way to escape the fate of being cut. Supreme pure yang sword qi in the mortal world was almost invincible. Not to mention the 10th water divine thunder, even if it was 10 times more powerful, it would be difficult to escape the sword. The threat of the 10th water divine thunder had disappeared, but new troubles followed. Supreme pure yang sword qi, Shi Shanshan just collected it, and she didn't even start to refine it, so she couldn't control it freely. Just because she has been fighting against the sword qi in the past few years, she subconsciously released it when she encountered danger, but the fatal problem was that she couldn't collect it. Yang Chen almost instantly realized that it was not good. He hurriedly flashed and appeared in front of Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. The golden bell was opened to the maximum, and even the immortal beheading blade was taken out, blocking in front of himself and the two women. In the distance there were more than a dozen screams before they died, and the screams were full of unwillingness. Yang Chen knew that those were definitely the guys who had been wandering around and had not dispersed, waiting to plot against them. These guys, no one will care if they die. The trouble was that the two women behind Yang Chen, Fairy Junqi of the Greatest Heaven sect and Fairy Qing Mu of the Qiankuan sect, also made a painful cry. Fortunately, Yang Chen had already absorbed the scabbard into the immortal beheading blade, so the immortal beheading blade that was taken out in a hurry still blocked most of the sword qi. Fortunately, Yang Chen had already absorbed the scabbard into the immortal beheading blade, so the immortal beheading blade that was taken out in a hurry still blocked most of the sword qi. However, the remaining part of the sword qi still broke through the blockage of the immortal beheading blade. Two subtle sword qi directly broke through the dragon shadow defense on Yang Chen's golden bell, passed through Yang Chen's body, and directly entered the bodies of the two women. At this moment, Yang Chen didn't even feel the pain in his body. Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang could die in anyone's hands, but not in the hands of Shi Shanshan. Although Yang Chen always wanted to ruin the reputation of the Taishaman and let the four major sects join forces to attack, it was obviously not the time. Shi Shanshan made a move first. If something happened, it would also be a fatal trouble for Shi Shanshan. Things happened too fast. Although Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang had already made a defensive posture and summoned their protective magic weapons in time, in the face of the supreme pure Yang sword qi, even if the power of the sword qi had been offset by Yang Chen, they still couldn't resist it. The protective magic weapons of the two women were shattered, and the sword qi directly passed through the bodies of the two women. The two women were lifted high and fell heavily. Yang Chen's movements were fast enough, but he only had time to catch the bodies of the two women. Immediately, Yang Chen took out 2 fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills and put them into the mouths of the two women. The two women's injuries were not too serious, and it was not fatal. They still retained their consciousness and swallowed the pills obediently. No one said anything. At this time, Yang Chen discovered the injuries on his body and also took a 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. Seeing that although the two women were injured, they were still in good spirits, he was relieved. Shi Shanshan finally took back the sword qi, but after this, she no longer dared to use it casually. The pure Yang sword qi could be released but not withdrawn, and it could not distinguish between friend and foe. It seemed that she could only work hard to refine a part of it before she could use it again. Seeing that Yang Chen was injured, the cold plum fairy was also very anxious. She patiently waited for the sword qi to be withdrawn, and then came to Yang Chen's side. Looking at the sword wound on Yang Chen's body, she couldn't help but have some resentment towards Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. Shi Shanshan of course knew that Yang Chen had refined the scabbard. If he was alone, the sword qi could not hurt Yang Chen at all. It was because he had to protect the two of them that Yang Chen was injured. Therefore, for Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang, these two women, Shi Shanshan no longer had the previous good impression. However, in the hearts of Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang, the current situation could not be better. Shi Shanshan hurt the two of them, no matter for what reason, it would always make Yang Chen feel guilty, which would give them the opportunity to get closer to Yang Chen. However, for the strength of Shi Shanshan's sword qi, the two women were shocked. When the sword qi came, the two women could not resist at all. At that moment, even Tao Junqi in the late Desheng stage had to admit that she was not the opponent of Shi Shanshan. As for Shi Wushuang, who had the same cultivation base as Shi Shanshan, there was a feeling that it was difficult to catch up. Shi Shanshan was only in the middle Yuanying stage and was close to the late Yuanying stage. Even if she broke through, she would only be in the late Yuanying stage. There was a big realm difference with Tao Junqi, but it could make her feel this kind of unmatched feeling. Even Tao Junqi could not help but feel fear. Fairy Qing Mu originally thought that everyone was about the same, but now she discovered that she had been unconsciously left so far behind by Shi Shanshan. Although the original Winter Plum Fairy was famous, it wasn't as shocking as now. Everything seemed to have changed after she had a relationship with Yang Chen. If Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang had to deal with Yang Chen because of the sect, then now seeing the performance of Shi Shanshan, the two women coincidentally had another idea. It seemed that cultivating with Yang Chen was not something unacceptable. Chapter 1209. The small episode did not change the itinerary of Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan, but when they left, the two of them had a few more Qiankuan bags from those who planned to plot against them. In Yang Chen's shuttle, there were two more beauties, Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. Those people's calculations were exquisite. Yang Chen and the Cold Plum Fairy appeared next to the Taishaman Fairy Junqi and the Qiankuan sect Fairy Qing Mu. If Yang Chen was killed together with the three fairies, it would inevitably cause chaos in Taishaman, Green Jade Immortal Island, Qiankuan sect and Chunyang Palace. Then they could calmly take the things they got from Yang Chen, and no one could find them. Hundreds of 10th water divine thunder, or the 10th water divine thunder with added materials, were enough to send 4 masters of the Deshang stage to hell. But what these guys never thought was that Shi Shanshan was so terrifying, with a sword qi, she cut hundreds of 10th water divine thunder into 2 halves, and even they themselves could not withstand the power of the sword. The emergence of the 100-year pill made Yang Chen now like the sun in the sky. The greater Yang Chen's reputation was, the more protection it brought to him, but it also attracted more people to covet him. Chunyang Palace was not a sect that was good at alchemy, but there was a 5th-grade alchemist master, which was strange. Countless people were digging the secret of how Yang Chen became a 5th-grade alchemist master. Countless speculations pointed in one direction, that was, Yang Chen did not learn this from the sect, but from another source. This source was obviously carried on his body for safekeeping. As long as Yang Chen was killed, there would be no need to worry about getting good things. This batch of people was not the first batch, and it would never be the last batch. As long as Yang Chen still had a heart-stirring reputation, there would be no shortage of such people. It was just that the people who would do it in the future would be more and more difficult to deal with and more powerful. After this time, Shi Shanshan no longer dared to use the pure Yang sword qi casually. In the following days, he just had to constantly refine this sword qi. Yang Chen said that he would no longer interfere with the cultivation direction of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, but the last time he interfered with them was so that they wouldn't have to think about anything else for 1,000 years or even longer. Yang Chen still sent Shi Shanshan back to the Green Jade, Immortal Island. Although following Yang Chen's side could make Shi Shanshan happier, the Green Jade Immortal Island was, after all, Shi Shanshan's root. Island Lord, Elder Min, Shanshan can't easily fight with others this time. After sending Shi Shanshan back, Yang Chen directly brought Shi Shanshan to meet the Lord of Tantai and Elder Min Huafeng. He solemnly explained Shi Shanshan's current condition. For the Green Jade Immortal Island, Yang Chen did not intend to let Shi Shanshan conceal the matter of the sword qi. Except for the origin, everything else was revealed. Hearing that even Fairy Junqi and Fairy Qing Mu couldn't block a blow from Shi Shanshan, the people of the Green Jade Immortal Island were surprised and happy, but they couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. The reason why Yang Chen warned like this was naturally because of the last time, Shi Shanshan didn't want to do it, but the sect wanted to know the effect of her experience. Under the arrangement of the people headed by Elder Bei Shuangyu, she competed with the masters of the sect. If it wasn't for Elder Min's early action, maybe Shi Shanshan would have already caused a big disaster. Even so, Shi Shanshan did not escape being calculated after the event. The current situation was different from that time. Once they started, it would be a life and death situation. Shi Shanshan couldn't control the sword qi freely at all. She could send it out but couldn't take it back. If Shi Shanshan was angry, there was only a dead end, and there was no other way. At this point, Yang Chen said very clearly, even if it was a great elder, he should not try it at will. In addition to the embarrassment, the core high-level members of the Green Jade Immortal Island were also surprised and happy. Shi Shanshan had great benefits, and the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires pill was definitely indispensable to the Green Jade Immortal Island. However, the specific price had to be specifically discussed. These had to wait for Yang Chen to return to Chunyang Palace. It was impossible for the Green Jade Immortal Island to bypass Chunyang Palace and directly discuss with Yang Chen. After settling Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen could only return to Chunyang Palace with Tao Junqi and Shi Wushuang. The 2 women were able to have this opportunity to further contact with Yang Chen, and they both cherished it very much. The injury has long been healed under the treatment of the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. On the basis of appropriate intimacy, the 2 women also behaved very appropriately, which made Yang Chen feel very good. and they did not use this to force Yang Chen to give any answer, they just enjoyed the feeling of being with Yang Chen. What surprised Yang Chen was that when he returned to Chunyang Palace, one of the Murong sisters of the Five Elements sect had been waiting for a long time in Chunyang Palace. She did not directly find Yang Chen with the tracking compass like Tao Junki and Shi Wushuang, but waited in Chunyang Palace. Anyway, Yang Chen would always come back, wouldn't he? The beauties of the three major sect gave Yang Chen a headache. After temporarily settling the three women, Yang Chen first met his master and ancestor, and then met the high-level members of the sect. What is the matter with the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill? The high-level members of Chunyang Palace had been waiting anxiously for a long time. When Yang Chen came back to meet them, they immediately asked anxiously. After Yang Chen told them about the Green Jade Immortal Island, the head of the palace understood the cause of the matter, and they also had a better understanding of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. So, this 7 emotions pill is also suitable for me? In the past few hundred years, the head of the palace had also reached the peak yuanying stage. When he heard that the Lord of Tantai used the 7 emotions pill to cross the tribulation, the head of the palace couldn't help but be tempted. Indeed. Yang Chen replied with a smile. This disciple didn't have much confidence before, but the Lord of Tantai helped to test the effect, so this disciple can be sure. You are so bold, you dare to let the Lord of Tantai try the medicine? When everyone heard that Yang Chen actually let the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island try the medicine, they couldn't help but worry secretly. At the same time, their dissatisfaction with Yang Chen for letting outsiders know about this precious medicinal pill was also thrown out of the window. The effect is definitely there, but I don't know how good it is. Yang Chen was not worried at all and replied with a smile, there won't be any big problems. Yang Chen said it easily, but everyone knew the danger, and they couldn't help but have a cold sweat for the audacity of their own disciple. In order to vent for his wife, he took out this kind of heaven-defying medicinal pill, and also brought down a core elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island plus an ordinary elder. His ability to cause trouble was not ordinary. How are you going to arrange this medicinal pill? Everyone was happy, and they all understood that Chunyang Palace had another big weapon in their hand. With this 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, in the future, Chunyang Palace would have more and more power. The raw materials are not easy to collect, so we can only supply them in small amounts. Yang Chen thought about it and replied, it's still the old rules, first give enough benefits to the sect, and then let them talk to the disciple. Chapter 12:10. The purpose of the 3 beauties of the 3 major sects waiting for Yang Chen here, without asking, was definitely for the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. From the Lord of Tantai, countless sect masters saw the hope of improving their own cultivation. Who would easily miss it? Not only the 5 major sects, but many people from other sects had already greeted Chunyang Palace, waiting for Yang Chen to come back and offer a price. Many representatives of the sects were not qualified to see Yang Chen for the first time, and could only wait honestly. During this time, there were a lot of people who came to Chunyang Palace. Although Chunyang Palace had been very lively before, it still couldn't catch up with this time. All the guest rooms in the Pure Yang Palace were full, and even they couldn't live in them. Many visitors were arranged in the market. Countless rogue cultivators gathered at Meiqing Mountain. Everyone's goal was almost the same, all to ask for pills. The medicinal pills that Yang Chen had launched in recent years. No matter what kind of medicinal pills it was, the questioning inner heart pill, the second-grade inner sensing pill, the 100 years pill, the appearance pill, plus the recently launched 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, each of them was a good thing that made people scramble for it. For those cultivators who were not supported by the major sects, any one of them could only be obtained by chance. After almost 200 or 300 years of research, the second-grade inner sensing pill was finally refined by the masters of Danding sect, and Chunyang Palace was no longer the only one. However, the rest were still unique to Yang Chen. The questioning inner heart pill and the 100 years pill, even if the 5 major sects and Danding sect had the pill recipe, they could not refine it. The difficulty of refining the questioning inner heart pill was still too high, and there were no raw materials for refining the 100 years pill at all. The appearance pill was a secret that Yang Chen had exclusively mastered, and it had never been leaked. No matter who asked, it had never been leaked. This was one of the guarantees for Wanbao Tower to make a fortune. Yang Chen would not give it away easily. The last one left was the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. Everyone had only heard of the reputation of this magical medicinal pill. There was only one person who had really used it, and that was the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island. The effect was very outstanding. Almost immediately after taking the medicine, it was a first-class supreme elixir. From the establishment of the Mountain Gate to the present, Chunyang Palace had never had such a scene. Several core executives, including the head of the palace, had been smiling from ear to ear since Yang Chen came back. The great wish of their ancestors was about to be realized in their hands. How could these elders not be overjoyed? However, Fairy Junkie and Fairy Qing Mu came back with Yang Chen, and one of the Murong sisters was still waiting for Yang Chen in Chunyang Palace. In particular, they were directly settled in the small courtyard where Yang Chen lived. This situation was seen by many people, and there were many ambiguous rumors. Originally, there was an uproar some time ago. 3 sects came to propose marriage, and were rejected by Chunyang Palace. But at that time, because Yang Chen did not deal with it cleanly, there had been various rumors. Now Yang Chen came back directly with 2 women, and one was still waiting at home. What did this mean? Yang Chen sometimes really wanted to slap himself in the face a few times. Why did he say those words that made him regret it so much at that time? Sure enough, if you don't make a decision, you will be in trouble. The 3 women had probably heard a lot of such statements, so they did not care about it. On the contrary, they were happy to see it. It was just hard for Yang Chen. It was not appropriate to refute the rumors, but if he did not refute the rumors, he would be labeled as a lecherous person for no reason, which was really embarrassing. Many small sects were envious of the 5 major sects. After all, they were powerful. Even if they ignored the genius Yang Chen at the beginning, they could always use many things to make up for it later. Even if they had to pay a few of their own talented and beautiful disciples, they still achieved their goal in the end. On the contrary, they could not force the marriage proposal like the 5 major sects. Chunyang Palace also directly rejected the marriage proposal, so they could only wait in line to ask for elixir pills. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling also returned to Chunyang Palace. Of course, they also heard a lot of rumors, but they had absolute confidence in their husband. No matter how the rumors outside were, they all responded with a smile, and there was no sign of jealousy. This scene fell into the eyes of others. Naturally, it was Yang Chen's way of treating his wife. The flowers inside and outside the wall were full of fragrance, especially all of them were unparalleled fairies, which always made people envious. Compared with Yang Chen's anxiety, Tao Junkie and Shi Wushuang's side was in a hurry to send some news. They had been staying on Yang Chen's shuttle before, and when they arrived at the Green Jade Immortal Island, they did not find a chance. Now they finally had the opportunity to avoid Yang Chen and passed back what they knew to the sect. They didn't know what kind of adventure Shi Shanshan had, but she could kill more than a dozen masters of the Deshang stage in one move. These things all happened in front of them. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's quick protection, maybe the 2 of them would have been killed. The Cold Plum Fairy was only in the middle and late Yuanying stage. It was absolutely beyond everyone's expectations that she could have such a combat power. In particular, in the past 2 years, the news that the Green Jade Immortal Island's elder Bei Shuangyu had been in seclusion for a long time, coupled with the news that Shi Shanshan had been suppressed before, there must be something wrong with this. Everything was inseparable from Yang Chen. In particular, The reason why Shi Shanshan could kill more than a dozen masters of the Deshang stage was what the major sect wanted to know. This could even be compared to the pill recipe in Yang Chen's hands. The 7 emotions and 6 desires pill contains the aura of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation. It is not easy to collect, and there are not many on hand. Yang Chen didn't know these things. The 7 emotions and 6 desires pill was really too lazy to bid himself. He could only gather the representatives of several sects, mainly the representatives of the 5 major sects and the pill cauldron sect, and then expressed his attitude. Each sect has 3 7 emotions and 6 desires pill, no more. In the future, I have to find a way to find a master of tribulation to collect the aura of the tribulation. Everyone discuss it, you see what price is appropriate. Unexpectedly, Tao Junqi, Shi Wushuang, and Murong were not the representatives of their respective sect. The sect representative was another person, which made Yang Chen very surprised. Grandmaster Yang, are you willing to sell the pill recipe of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill? The representative of the pill cauldron sect wanted to know the pill recipe most and asked first. In fact, this was what other sect wanted to know. Of course, as long as the price is enough. However, do you still have a 7th grade fire seed in your hands? Yang Chen's pill recipe has always been calculated by the 7th grade fire seed. Even if the fire seed is not enough, it must be compensated with something that is equivalent to the value of the 7th grade fire seed. In this way, everyone was not surprised, but Yang Chen's next sentence made many people hesitate. The raw materials need the aura of the Yin fire tribulation and the wind tribulation. How to collect the aura of the tribulation is not within the scope of the pill recipe. The implication was that this was Yang Chen's exclusive secret recipe, and it would not be leaked. Chapter 12:11. Since Yang Chen said this, everyone could be sure that this 7 emotions and 6 desires pill could definitely be refined by the level of a 3rd or 4th grade alchemist master. However, if there are no materials, the great principle golden immortal can't refine it. How to collect the aura of the tribulation made many people smile bitterly. In the mortal world, when everyone talks about the tribulation, they are very cautious and they can't wait to deal with it with 120% of their spirit. Everyone who has crossed the tribulation, who is not trembling and afraid of failing the tribulation, who would think that they could collect some of the tribulation aura from the tribulation and use it for alchemy. Yang Chen not only thought of this, but also did this, which could only show that Yang Chen's ideas were indeed unique. The name of a 5th grade alchemist master was worthy of its name. No one else had ever thought of this. This was the gap. In this way, the alchemy technique should not be the most important, but the materials. For a time, everyone began to hesitate whether they really wanted to buy this pill recipe. After all, even if there was a pill recipe, there was no way to collect the aura of the tribulation. Master Yang, are you willing to sell this method of collecting the aura of the tribulation? Someone asked immediately. Yang Chen was famous for selling everything, but the price was expensive. It was not surprising that some people were interested. The price tag is very high. Yang Chen replied without hesitation. At the same time, he did not hesitate to give the other party some more information. Even if there is a way, you still have to risk your life to enter the scope of the tribulation. Are you sure you want to buy it? When they heard that they had to enter the range of the tribulation, many people thought about it. Although the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill was good, it was not worth mentioning compared to life. Who would be willing to enter the range of others' tribulation? First, it would increase the difficulty of others' tribulation. Second, they had to experience the threat of the tribulation themselves. Only a fool would do this kind of thing where the cost was greater than the benefit. How did the master remain safe and sound in the range of the tribulation? Among the cultivators, there were almost no fools. Immediately, someone figured out the key to the problem and asked aloud. There are actually many ways. In short, as long as your cultivation is enough. Yang Chen was still not unhappy and replied directly, in fact, as long as the person who is crossing the tribulation agrees, a master of the Deshang stage can easily enter the scope of the fire tribulation, isn't it? This principle was very simple, and almost everyone could think of it. However, everyone's mind was obviously not on the fire tribulation, but on the higher-level wind tribulation. Everyone stared at Yang Chen, waiting for Yang Chen to give a specific answer. Even if it wasn't that specific, it was good to have a direction. As for the black wind tribulation, it's the same principle. If one's cultivation surpasses the standard of ascension, one will naturally be safe and sound. I'm sure everyone understands this. He was facing the representatives of the 5 great sects and the Pill Cauldron School. Presumably, they all knew about the existence of the Grand Supreme Elder, so it was understandable. However, it was hard to say for a small sect. It was simply unimaginable for them to believe that there were experts who had transcended the tribulation transcendence in the mortal world. As for my own method, Yang Chen sold a little bit of suspense, but it attracted a group of sect representatives. Although they did not see the real 6 desires pill, since Yang Chen said that he could provide 3, it meant that there must be. Yang Chen's cultivation had not reached the level of the Grand Supreme Elder. How to collect the aura of the tribulation was naturally the focus of people's attention. If I don't interfere with the person who is crossing the tribulation, it will not increase the difficulty of crossing the tribulation. Of course, I will not be hurt myself. After Yang Chen first explained the characteristics of his method, a group of people were like hungry wolves staring at fresh meat. He said slowly, "It's very expensive." How expensive? Although the Pill Cauldron School did not have 2 powerful masters, they have always been rich. As long as it was something that could be offered, they were not afraid. Speaking of the money earned from the elixirs, 10 Yang Chens could not compare to the accumulation of the Pill Cauldron School for tens of thousands of years, or even longer. It's so expensive that you want me to say more nonsense. Otherwise, you will feel pain. Yang Chen showed a rare sense of humor, but it also indirectly showed how expensive this method was. Although he did not give a specific price, everyone already had an idea in their hearts. Yang Chen had now understood the style of some big sect. Even if he could not do some good things for the time being, he must have the method in his hands. Maybe in the future, an outstanding disciple could do it. Therefore, if they could buy the elixir recipe, they would definitely buy it. This was a strategic reserve, which was on a completely different level from the small sect's method of training masters first. Of course, Yang Chen would not refuse the benefits that were delivered to his doorstep. Therefore, the group of representatives of the big sect began to bargain with Yang Chen in front of Yang Chen. The 7 emotions pill was simple, 1 gene of the best quality spirit stone, without any additional price. The 6 desires pill was much higher, not to mention 10 gene of the best quality spirit stone. Each sect also had to send a book of the alchemy experience of the sect's predecessors. Of course, this was the price for the 5 major sects plus the Pill Cauldron School. The rest, except for the Chunyang Palace, would be kept for their own use, and the rest would be auctioned at the Wanbao Tower according to these prices. He believed that many people would be very interested in this. Yang Chen's asking price for the elixir recipe was not high, a 7th grade fire seed plus some refining materials. However, it was specifically specified that it was a 7th grade pure true fire. If there was pure true fire, it could be traded directly without additional payment of various materials. So far, Yang Chen has not yet obtained pure true fire. In the future, the longevity pill would also need pure Yang true fire and pure true fire to refine. This was to prepare for a rainy day. The representatives of the major sect have not yet given Yang Chen a reply on the method of collecting the tribulation aura. Yang Chen's asking price was too high. It was 10 kinds of 7th grade fire seeds or equivalent items. This price tag was enough to make any sect retreat. After sending away the representatives of the major sect, Yang Chen was finally able to be quiet. What surprised him was that Tao Junqi, Shi Wushuang, and Murong did not leave, but continued to stay in the Pure Yang Palace. It was very embarrassing for Yang Chen to leave and not to leave. Since the Seven Emotions pill has been verified by the Lord of Tantai, naturally, it was also indispensable for the palace master and another elder who was about to break through. After Yang Chen solved the price tag with the major sect, they each took the elixir and retreated. Yang Chen's master, Wang Yong, guarded the two of them. Yang Chen and Gao Yugong's Sunling had not seen each other for a long time. The two women had been busy with the task of the sect. They reunited with Yang Chen after a long time, and it was a joy. Yang Chen did not say anything and took the two women to retreat. The highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra double cultivation, it was absolutely necessary to improve the spiritual awareness of the two women first. Just as everyone was cultivating, and Chunyang Palace seemed to be normal, a sudden change occurred. A powerful force, like thunder, madly carried out a destructive attack on the Pure Yang Palace. Chapter 12:12. Boom! Meiqing Mountain seemed to be detonated in an instant. The violent collision between the mountain protection array and an unknown array caused a sound and vibration, like a landslide. Countless flames lit up, countless flying sword magic weapons were boiling in the air. It was not known how long the crisis had been brewing finally broke out. The timing of the attack was very good. The palace master and an elder were in retreat, Wang Yong was guarding, Yang Chen and Gao Yugong's Sunling were in retreat together, the old tree demon happened to be on duty in the 100,000 mountains, and Ho Yun was in the banyan tree Immortal's cave. The highest power of the sect could almost be said to be the weakest time, and the powerful attack suddenly came. This mysterious force almost gathered at least 20 masters of the Deshang stage, and there were hundreds of Yuanying stage masters who attacked at the same time, which absolutely surpassed the Chunyang Palace. The long-planned attack organizers have fully estimated the strength of Chunyang Palace. Even if the masters of Chunyang Palace were there, it was estimated that they were not their opponents. As for the Jedon stage and the Foundation stage, the number was basically in the thousands. These people were all helping to block anyone who wanted to escape in panic. Those who had come to Chunyang Palace many years ago and settled in the market or in the mountain gate to ask for alchemy, now almost half of them had become participants in this conspiracy attack. It was not so easy to use such a terrifying number of people at one time, even for the 5 major sects. The masters who participated were Taoists, demons, and monsters. It was completely impossible to see which side was the main one. However, the goal of all the participants was surprisingly the same, that was Yang Chen. To be exact, it was to capture Yang Chen alive. It was not known how long the other party had been planning for. The entire Meiqing Mountain was secretly arranged with a powerful array. The role of the array, one was to offset the mountain protection array of Chunyang Palace, and the other was to trap people who were not their own people as much as possible. All the attackers seemed to have a characteristic that could be identified by this array. Of course, this was easy to do. There were many ways, but in a hurry, who could find out what method the other party used? One side would be trapped by the array, and the other side would be free to move. The result was naturally self-evident. What's more, one side had been planning for a long time, and the other side was passive defense. As the saying goes, only 1,000 days to be a thief, not 1,000 days to guard against a thief. After this offset, the advantage of Chunyang Palace was lost. Although the mountain protection array could barely support because there were sufficient spirit stones, the side of Chunyang Palace had already shown weakness. Of course, the mountain protection array could protect the disciples of Chunyang Palace, but now it was a little offset. The master of the palace did not come out to command at all, and his retreat was the first wave of attack. The other party did not intend to let the palace master Zhang Jiao live at all, and the four masters of the Deshang stage attacked together. Even if there was Wang Yong's protector, at the critical moment of cultivation, the head of the palace could not be spared. With just one blow, the small courtyard of the palace master turned into ruins, and no one could escape. Even Wang Yong, who was the protector, did not seem to have calculated this sudden situation. Under the joint attack of four masters of the Deshang stage, he did not even have the most basic resistance and was completely killed. At least in the eyes of the four masters of the Deshang stage who launched the attack, this was the result. No one could survive the joint attack of the four of them and dozens of 7th Gold Divine Thunder. Even Wang Yong of the Deshang stage could not. Another place that was focused on was the warehouse of Chunyang Palace. As we all know, Chunyang Palace has obtained huge resources from the 100,000 mountains, from the monster race, and from the South China Sea over the years. In addition to the benefits that the sect and rogue cultivators gave to Chunyang Palace in order to ask for alchemy, the sect warehouse of Chunyang Palace could be said to be one of the most lucrative places. This was not counting the large number of medicinal pills that Yang Chun gave to the sect as a reserve. Every medicinal pill refined by Yang Chun, even the most basic foundation building pill, was a jaw-dropping third-grade foundation building pill, which could directly make people 100% successful in the foundation building stage. Who would not like such a good thing? What did everyone fight for? Wasn't it just these worldly possessions? Even if Yang Chen's medicinal pills were limited, and everyone could not do one per person or distribute them equally. But those good things in the warehouse would not be less. As long as Chunyang Palace was destroyed, these would be a delicious meal for everyone to share. Of course, the secret pavilion of Chunyang Palace was a top priority. However, the secret pavilion had always been controlled by the head of the palace. If they wanted to snatch it, they could only get it from the body of the head of the palace. Fortunately, the space of the secret pavilion was relatively stable. Even the masters of the Deshang stage might not be able to destroy it. However, this was something that could not be sought. It depended on whether everyone's luck was good, and whether they could get it from the hands of the head of the palace. Otherwise, there would not be thousands of secret planes in the world. Basically, they were left by the destroyed sects or families. The masters of the Hall of Eccentrics were taken care of the most. The high-end power of Chunyang Palace was basically concentrated in the Hall of Eccentrics, and most of them were from the monster race. After all, if human cultivators could reach the Yuanying stage, they were also famous figures, and the proportion of them joining Chunyang Palace was very small. In this regard, the other party had sent a powerful force, at least 7 or 8 masters of the Deshang stage, more than the masters of the Deshang stage in Chunyang Palace. Coupled with hundreds of masters of the Yuanying stage, it would not be a problem to fight in a short time. As long as they fought, those masters of the Deshang stage could wantonly slaughter and completely eliminate the power of Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen's small courtyard was the focus of the attack, even more than the palace master's side. There were 10 masters of the Deshang stage who surrounded the small courtyard where Yang Chen retreated. However, the opponent did not intend to kill Yang Chen at once, but together with dozens of masters of the Yuanying stage, they surrounded Yang Chen's residence, and then the 10 masters of the Deshang stage rushed in. One thing may not be expected by the other party's organizers. Fairy Junkie of the Taishanmen, Fairy Qingmu of the Qiankuan sect, and Murong of the Five Elements sect were also in the next courtyard. This accident made the masters involved in the attack a little hesitant. The disciples of the 3 major sect were not like the disciples of Chunyang Palace. If they were destroyed, they would be destroyed. It was impossible for such a big action to be carried out without a little wind. Once the 3 women were killed, the 3 major sect would know later that none of them who participated in the attack would be able to survive the tribulation and ascend. This point did not even need to be verified. Even the Chunyang Palace dared to destroy the Luoyuan family in the late Deshang stage. The Qiankuan sect of Taishanmen and the Five Elements sect were 10,000 times stronger than the Chunyang Palace. Chapter 12-13. As a last resort, these attackers could only separate a part of their masters to trap the three women. However, this was a bit troublesome. Fairy Junkie herself was in the late Deshang stage, plus Murong in the early Deshang stage, and Shi Wushuang in the peak Yuanying stage. There were at least 5 Deshang stage masters on this side. The remaining 5 Deshang stage masters directly rushed into Yang Chen's courtyard. In Yang Chen's courtyard, in theory, there should only be 3 masters, Yang Chen, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, plus some servants of Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. There was no one else. However, as soon as they rushed into the courtyard, the 5 masters couldn't help but show a shocked look. Everything they saw in front of them directly subverted their cognition. If it wasn't very clear that they had just rushed in from the outside, everyone would think that they were hallucinating. It looked like a very ordinary small courtyard from the outside, but when they came in, it was magnificent to the extreme. Even if the 5 Deshang stage masters were all experienced and knowledgeable people, they had never seen such a luxurious scene. It was a huge palace complex, not to mention how exquisite the palace complex was. Just the neat tiles on the square were enough to make people suck in a breath of cold air. Where were these still floor tiles? It was clearly a large piece of the best jade, the size was the same, it was carefully carved, and the ground under their feet was decorated beautifully. If it was just beautiful, it would be fine. The problem was that every piece of jade had been meticulously refined by an expert refiner. Any one of them would not be inferior to a top-grade magic treasure. Not only were the floor tiles a magic weapon, but the spiritual power overflowing from the ground was more than 10 times richer than any place they had ever seen. So much so that even if these Deshang stage masters enjoyed the best spiritual veins in the major sect, they had a feeling of inferiority. Just looking at the ground, the 5 masters who rushed in who thought they were experienced and knowledgeable couldn't wait to beat their chest and stomp their feet to vent hysterically. They had worked hard all their lives, saved all kinds of resources, cultivated hard, and finally had their current achievements. But when they came here, they found that they couldn't even afford the floor tiles in the courtyard. What would it feel like to cultivate in such a place? All the experts were filled with anticipation, and their eyes were filled with greed. She wished that she could pick up a few tiles from the ground and hug them in her arms, never to let go. This trip was really the right one. He knew that Master Yang was rich, but he didn't expect Master Yang to be this rich. However, this palace made their respective sect look like a beggar's nest. They looked at each other. No one could hide the greed in their eyes and their heavy breathing. As long as they could capture Yang Chen, wouldn't everything be theirs? Splash, the sound of something falling into the water startled the attention of the 5 masters of the Deshang stage, and everyone's eyes turned to the direction of the sound. Then, they all stared with their eyes wide open, as though they were about to pop out of their sockets. A very ordinary-looking dog happily jumped into a large purple pool. In the purple liquid, it swam with a dog paddle, shaking its head, and it was indescribably happy. However, everyone's eyes were fixed on the purple liquid, which was glowing with starlight. This obvious feature was enough for any master who claimed to be well-informed to understand what this was. 4 C's mysterious coral liquid. Except for the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid, there was no other thing with such a color. However, in the eyes of any cultivator, the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid was something that they had to snatch. Usually, a drop of it was enough to make people ecstatic. There was such a big pool here. No wonder Yang Chen's alchemy level was unparalleled in the world. With so many 4 C's mysterious coral liquids, even the most difficult medicinal pill would be 100 times easier in Yang Chen's hands. What was a 5th-grade alchemist master? If a 4th-grade alchemist master was given so many 4 C's mysterious coral liquids, he could directly refine a 6th-grade medicinal pill. It turned out that the secret of Yang Chen's alchemy master lay here. all 5 people had a feeling of sudden enlightenment. This time, they didn't have to worry about Yang Chen not cooperating and refusing to hand over his alchemy secret. Now everyone could rest assured that they would kill Yang Chen boldly, and then legitimately occupy these 4 seas mysterious coral liquids. There were countless thoughts in their minds, but everyone followed the figure of the native dog and kept swimming in the 4 seas mysterious coral liquid pool. They have all heard of this native dog. Yang Chen did not buy a high-level monster pet in the 10,000 Beasts Pavilion, but bought a native dog. These were all in Yang Chen's information. Before, people were curious and did not see this native dog, but now they finally know where the native dog was. After swimming for a while, the native dog climbed to the shore, then stood on the shore, shaking the wet hair and shaking the 4 seas mysterious coral liquid on it. Then, in the angry eyes of the 5 Deshang stage masters, he raised a leg and peed directly in the 4 seas mysterious coral liquid. The native dog was, of course, Xiao Tian, which was its original form. In the eyes of Uncle Xiao Tian, if he peed in the 4 seas mysterious coral liquid, it would greatly improve the various effects of the 4 seas mysterious coral liquid. Do you think that Uncle Xiao Tian would pee anywhere? But in the eyes of the 5 Deshang stage masters, this was clearly a reckless waste of natural resources. The 4 seas mysterious coral liquid that could make people break their heads turned out to be the swimming pool of this beast, and he even peed in it. When they thought that the medicinal pills they had asked from Yang Chen before were likely to contain the urine of this beast, everyone was filled with anger. This could be tolerated, what could not be tolerated? Now the 5 people had the heart to directly swallow Xiao Tian. Why do you dare to pee in our 4 seas mysterious coral liquid? Subconsciously, everything here was already their personal belongings, and they could not see anyone destroying and spoiling it. Finally, they resisted the idea of tearing Xiao Tian into pieces, and everyone moved forward together. The main purpose of coming here was to subdue Yang Chen. No one had forgotten this. As long as Yang Chen was restrained or killed, everything here would be theirs and no one could take it away. After entering the first palace, everyone's pupils constricted again. This was a spacious living room, but from the tables and chairs to the teapot and teacups on it, any one of them could make people crazy. 2 masters even wished they could immediately throw away their magic weapon and replace it with the teacup on the table. They have seen extravagant things, but they have never seen such extravagance. Do they still want people to live? Several people couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. In vain, they boasted that they were well informed, but when they came here, they found that they were just frogs at the bottom of the well. Chapter 12:14. However, the more wealth Yang Chen showed, the more it would stimulate the greed of several guys who came in. If it was just for Yang Chen's medicinal pills before, now even Yang Chen's wealth was included. Unable to help it, a master of the Deshang stage picked up a teacup and looked at it carefully from top to bottom. The material of this teacup was far beyond his imagination. If it was used to refine a flying sword or other magic weapons, it would definitely be a good thing that could make countless people crazy. But now, such a precious Kunlun purple core jade was just a teacup. At best, this was a reception room. After walking through this hall, there was a huge courtyard. In the courtyard, there were many exquisite flower beds. Each flower bed was full of blooming flowers, decorating the flower beds with unusual beauty. Just seeing the first flower bed, a master with a unique understanding of medicine couldn't help but groan and almost fell to the ground. The red flower that bloomed at the edge of the flower bed was clearly a red snow. Looking at its age, it was afraid that it would be tens of thousands of years old. Even the flowers at the edge were like this, and those inside were even more stunning. It could be said very responsibly that a flower from here could be exchanged for a lifetime of luxury for a master of their level. And these extremely precious medicinal materials, here, were just materials to decorate the flower bed. Looking at this scene, several masters of the Deshang stage who rushed in had the urge to beat their chests and stamp their feet. What kind of prodigal son did he have to be to put on such an act? The battle outside had reached the end stage. Most of the disciples of Chunyang Palace in the past few hundred years were below the Yuanying stage. There were Jedon stage, Foundation Establishment stage, and Qi Refining stage. However, no one could stop this sudden attack. As soon as they came up, a lot of Chunyang Palace disciples were killed. For these junior disciples, the enemy never intended to be merciful. Since they wanted to destroy the entire Chunyang Palace, they naturally had to kill these junior disciples. The mountain guarding array could only protect the disciples within the range of the array for a short period of time. Those outside the range of the array would not be able to enjoy this kind of protection. Furthermore, the enemy's preparations were too thorough. Countless experts had even rushed into the great mountain protecting array. As long as they entered the range of the Great Formation, the attacks they received would be relatively weaker. That was especially true when the other party had already set up the formation to offset the attack. Thus, the experts within the range of the formation were not affected at all. On the contrary, the disciples of Chunyang Palace, who were bound by the enemy's tactical deployment, were greatly disturbed. Under such circumstances, even an expert who had the strength to fight could only die with a grievance. That was not all. The most chilling thing was that after the attack started for half an hour, some of the disciples of Chunyang Palace who were fighting with the enemy suddenly turned their flying sword and attacked the surrounding disciples crazily. They never thought that their partners around them would suddenly become a deadly enemy. Countless disciples of the Pure Yang Palace, under this sudden sneak attack, had their souls broken into pieces. Until they died, they did not close their eyes. They could not believe what they had seen. On Meiqing Mountain, there were shouts of killing and flames everywhere. The gate of Chunyang Palace, which had just been rebuilt for only a few hundred years, became a pile of rubble again. All the people within the scope of Meiqing Mountain were involved in it. Even if some of them were really innocent people who simply came to ask for alchemy, they were also caught in this unexpected disaster. The guys who killed in Meiqing Mountain, no matter who was innocent, who was not from the Pure Yang Palace, as long as they were not their own people, they would all kill them. With no way to escape, these people could only fight back. Thousands of miles away from the edge of Meiqing Mountain, in a pavilion on the hillside of a barren mountain, 5 people were sitting in the pavilion, looking in the direction of Meiqing Mountain. Looking from this direction, they could see the flames of Meiqing Mountain. This time Chunyang Palace is doomed. I'd like to see if Yang Chen has the means to escape from so many masters. The one who spoke was a woman, a middle-aged woman. If Yang Chen was there, he would definitely recognize that this was an elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island. She was one of the people who was with Lu Ziwei and laughed at Yang Chen and Shirshanshan. We use the hidden power of the sect like this. If it is known by the sect, won't we be severely punished? A man next to him said. This man already had the cultivation base of the Deshang stage, but he didn't know what secret method he had cultivated. He seemed to be just a Jedon stage cultivator. What are you afraid of? As long as we get Yang Chen's alchemy secrets, any mistakes can be offset. Another man said, our sect can't let such an important medicinal pill be pinched in the hands of Yang Chen, right? In fact, the people present also had nothing to say to dispel the tension in their hearts. After all, to eliminate such a powerful sect as Chunyang Palace, if they were careless, they would be crazily attacked and they couldn't help but be nervous. But the arrangements for many years were about to succeed, and they also hoped to see what they expected happen here. The situation on Meiqing Mountain could no longer be alleviated. Those who were smart had already escaped from the scope of Meiqing Mountain at the beginning, and those who were not smart enough were blocked on the mountain, either killing or being killed. But in any case, the attackers occupied the overwhelming advantage, and so far, Chunyang Palace has not seen a master come out to preside over the scene. The 5 masters of the Deshang stage who entered Yang Chen's palace were still moving forward. The palace group was too big, and it blocked their spiritual awareness. No matter how they urged their spiritual awareness, they couldn't detect the situation 20 feet away, they could only shine one by one. However, one thing was certain, Yang Chen must be in one of these rooms and has not left. In a large palace in front of them, suddenly there was a little sound. The 5 masters suddenly felt refreshed, looked at each other, and then made a few gestures. With a brush, the 5 people broke the door of the palace at the same time and rushed in. As soon as they rushed in, the 5 people were very smart to occupy 5 positions and put on a posture of siege, and then everyone looked around. Just at a glance, the 5 people suddenly froze in place, as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Inside the palace, it was like a huge lecture hall, and someone was talking about something in the center. Except for the place where the 5 of them broke in, which was a circular open space, the other places were layers of circular stairs. On each step, there were many people sitting, the number was almost 1,000. At this moment, they were watching them like watching a monkey show. Chapter 12:15. If it was hundreds of ordinary people looking at them, these masters would not feel anything. It was not that they had not experienced being worshipped by countless ordinary people as gods. That situation was enough to make them feel proud. But if these hundreds of people were masters of the Deshang stage, then it was a completely different matter. In particular, everyone here looked very fierce, and the evil aura on their bodies was enough to make people tremble. "Oh my God, Blood Hand Lu!" One person seemed to recognize one of the old devils, and after whispering directly, his body could no longer stop trembling. Human Butcher Zhang, Devil Shang. The 5 people were all masters who had traveled the world and met countless people. Their ability to recognize people was also first class, but every time they recognized one, their hearts sank a little. Not to mention that so many masters swarmed up, just the few that they recognized were enough for each person to deal with the 5 of them together. Wasn't this Yang Chen's private courtyard? How could there be so many masters? What were they doing here? Countless questions were surging in the minds of the 5 people, but at this moment, they would rather not come in than to know the answer to the question. The chaos of the Pure Yang Palace, after almost an hour, finally subsided completely. At this moment, Chunyang Palace had completely turned into ruins. There was no complete house, no living disciple of Chunyang Palace could be seen, and the enemies who launched attacks were everywhere. Finally, it was time to enjoy the fruits of victory. The hearts of countless people were full of pride. So what if it was Chunyang Palace? Wasn't it still destroyed by them? Even if there were a few masters of the Deshang stage, even if there were hundreds of masters of the Yuanying stage, they could still be destroyed if they wanted to, without leaving a trace of disaster. Just when everyone thought that they had won and began to turn over the rubble to collect the spoils, everyone suddenly heard a long sigh in their ears. AI. The sigh sounded in everyone's ears, so clear, full of regret, as if these masters were not worth it. "Who's there?" Someone immediately shouted and took a defensive stance. While they were excited, the others immediately realized that they were not the only ones who had heard the sigh, but everyone else had heard it. "We, the Chunyang Palace, have never offended you. Why do you come to kill us?" The questioning voice still sounded in everyone's ears. If someone was familiar with the people of Chunyang Palace, they would be able to recognize that this was the voice of the head of the palace. Cut the crap. A man's wealth is his own ruin. If you want to blame someone, blame that disciple of yours, Yang Chen. It's his fault for grasping something he shouldn't have. The voice that rang in everyone's ears brought unimaginable pressure to everyone. Someone immediately cursed out. Of course, since he couldn't find a suitable reason, he could only respond with this unpresentable reason. If that's the case, then it's not my Chunyang Palace's punishment. The palace master sneered and said these words. This made the hearts of the people who heard it tremble. What did it mean? In the midst of the confusion, the scenery in front of everyone suddenly changed. It was no longer the Chunyang Palace in the middle of the night, but it became daytime, and the location was changed to a huge empty square. The most terrifying thing was that everyone found that they couldn't move their whole body. No matter how they urged their spiritual power, their bodies couldn't move. It seemed that there was no other part that could move except for their mouth. The figures of the head of the palace and several core elders appeared in front of everyone. Behind them was a large group of Yuanying stage masters. Looking at their appearance, they were not hurt at all. How is it possible? The people who were trapped couldn't believe their eyes when they saw those people appear. They had clearly killed some of them, so how could they still be standing there unscathed? Then they immediately understood that they were still on Meiqing Mountain, and now they were here. It was clear that they were in an illusion. Everything that happened before was just their own illusion. After thinking of this, everyone was in a cold sweat, and there was no longer the pride of destroying the Chunyang Palace. You have been in my Chunyang Palace for no less than 20 years. Do you really think that the people in my Chunyang Palace are blind and can't even see this? The head of the palace sneered at these guys who stood neatly, and the contemptuous eyes made them almost want to find a crack to drill into. Unfortunately, they couldn't move their whole body, and they could only stand there like a wooden stake. When the old tree demon Gui Shanyu was crossing the Yin fire tribulation, he scattered his seeds all over the mountain. From that time on, any movement in the entire Meiqing Mountain was under the control of the old tree demon. The other party had been arranged for such a long time. How could they avoid the eyes and ears of the old tree demon? All of this was arranged long ago. However, the head of the palace didn't know when the other party would launch, so he had been careful and did not make a move. After Gong Sunling returned, she brought a brand new preventive method to the sect. The Mountain River geographical map directly shrouded the entire Meiqing Mountain, and everyone lived in the illusion of the Mountain River geographical map. The terrain was exactly the same, so that people in it could not tell whether it was real or illusory. As long as they left the scope of Meiqing Mountain, they would return to the real world, and entering the scope of Meiqing Mountain, they would enter the illusion. Even the people far away from Meiqing Mountain could only see the scene in the illusion. The head of the palace waved his hand, and a group of people wearing the costumes of Chunyang Palace disciples were escorted by a large number of Chunyang Palace disciples. These people were the guys who suddenly attacked the disciples of their sect after the other party launched an attack. You are the disciples of Chunyang Palace, but you betrayed us and killed your fellow disciples. According to the rules of the sect, you will be beheaded. The head of the palace did not look at these people and directly announced. The people in the disciplinary hall had been waiting for a long time. When they heard the instructions of the head of the palace, the flying sword suddenly came out, and after the whizzing sound, the heads fell to the ground. The hearts of the people watching on the opposite side were tight, and their faces finally began to show the expression of fear. Every sect had almost the same attitude towards this kind of sect enemy. Now it seemed that they absolutely could not be spared. It was a pity that after so many moves, they didn't even kill a disciple of Chunyang Palace. Several of the leading Desheng stage masters were even more disheartened. If they knew it would be like this, why did they do it in the beginning? Chapter 12:16. Since you have come and made your move, then you must have the awareness of paying the price. The head of the palace did not give these guys a chance at all, and directly announced their punishment. The murderer will always be killed. This must be clear to everyone. Then I hope you can go in peace. I will not send you off. After that, the head of the palace did not look at these trapped guys and turned away. A few of the core elders sneered and stepped forward. They carefully sized up the trapped people, and seemed to see a few familiar faces. After looking for a while, they also walked away with their hands clasped behind their back. They did not stop at all. Spare me! Some of the guys with low cultivation base, no longer cared about their own faces, rushed to the disciples of Chunyang Palace in front of them and shouted for mercy. We're just following orders. The culprit is not us. A series of cries came, in the face of the great horror between life and death. Some people, even if they have already seen through life and death, could not help but cry out. In the past, they saw through life and death because there was still a glimmer of hope, so they risked their lives to fight for a better future. Now they were like fish on the chopping block. How could they see through it? The main ones were still the disciples of the punishment hall, but some other disciples of Chunyang Palace, who had been injured in the previous illusion, were also willing to participate. Anyway, the number of people was enough. There were thousands of people. One person could kill one person. No one would ignore such a small wish of the disciples of the same sect. These masters are left for us to kill. The Yuanying stage masters of the Hall of Eccentrics rubbed their hands and walked to the area where the Yuanying stage masters were concentrated. To be able to kill a master of the same level, for these monster cultivators there was also a sense of excitement, and it also had a small promotion for their cultivation. The monster race, it was originally the law of the jungle. Of course, the monster race's killing was not simply killing, but directly swallowing the opponent. In the past, there were sect rules to control them. They had a lot of rules, but for this kind of enemy who killed their way to the mountain gate there were so many restrictions. Everyone was good. Elder Li of Taishanmen ordered us to wait. Elder Lu of the Five Elements sect is the culprit. Elder Gao of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, instructed us to wait. The Order of Qiankuan sect's Elder Wang, Elder Ouyang of Blue Cloud sect made the decision. The group of Yuanying stage masters obviously did not expect that they would be swallowed by the monster race. When they thought of this horrible way of death, they could no longer keep calm and cried out the mastermind behind the scenes. As expected, the 5 great sects were all present. It had to be said that only the 5 great sects could mobilize so many people. Dozens of Deshang stage masters and thousands of Yuanying stage cultivators were far from what the average small sect and rogue cultivators could organize. These guys who came to offend were almost all the spies arranged by the 5 sect, but now they were almost all caught by the Chunyang Palace. Tao Junki, Shi Wushuang, and Murong were fighting with 5 masters of the Deshang stage. They were also very strange. Who dared to do this in the Chunyang Palace? However, because of their resistance, the Chunyang Palace did not make any move to restrain them, but let them watch all this happen. Hearing that their own sect had high-level participation, and even the Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect also had high-level participation, the 3 women were ashamed and did not know how to express their apologies. No high-level members had ever informed them that such an attack would be launched, so it was obvious that they were also the part abandoned by the sect. Watching the masters belonging to their respective sect slowly lose their lives under the actions of the Chunyang Palace disciples like killing chickens, the 3 women had no reason to stop it. Once they opened their mouths, they believed that they would immediately become enemies from bystanders. At this time, the Chunyang Palace would never easily believe any outsider. It's really unlucky, guys. Yang Chun, of course, witnessed all this and let out a deep sigh. If you want to attack, you can't find a good time. You have to wait until a Ling's spiritual awareness breaks through to the 2nd grade of human immortal. When Yang Chun came back, of course, he had spiritual awareness double cultivation with Gong Sunling and Gao Yu first. The mystery of the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra soon raised Gong Sunling's spiritual awareness to the 2nd grade of human immortal. Controlling the mountain river geographical map was even more outstanding and easier. Under such circumstances, a group of experts plunged into the mountain river geographical map. It was refreshing to kill and beautiful to destroy, but unfortunately, everything was an illusion. Even the disciples of the Chunyang Palace saw the same illusion, which also induced a large number of chess pieces placed in the Chunyang Palace to be exposed, making the disciples of the Chunyang Palace more and more pure. What should we do with the culprits? These Yuanying stage and Deshang stage masters all said the behind-the-scenes instigators, and Gao Yu naturally wanted to know Yang Chen's attitude. Is there a need to ask, let them die? Yang Chen raised his eyebrows slightly and held Gao Yu in his arms. If they dare to do something to my sect, they always have to pay the price. The sect can't fight against the 5 major sects now, right? Gao Yu considered this point and nothing else. If we kill the elders of other sects with great fanfare, the 5 major sects will never let it go, right? Why do we have to do it? Yang Chen smiled slightly, held Gao Yu's hand, put on a posture of spiritual awareness double cultivation, and replied with a smile. Such a big thing happened, how can they explain themselves to the sect? Even if the 5 major sects are just for show, they have to put on a good enough posture. After that, Yang Chen looked at Gong Sunling, who was struggling to control the mountain river geographical map. Although Gong Sunling's spiritual awareness has greatly increased, to create such a big illusion still made her a little mentally and physically exhausted. She could support it until now. Yang Chen has helped a lot. Looking at Gong Sunling, Yang Chen turned around and said, "Believe me, let them kill them themselves in the sect. The feeling of refreshing is far better than the feeling of doing it ourselves. I'm afraid the days of Little Shui and Shanshan will not be very good." After Gao Yu thought about it, it seemed that it made sense, but she began to worry about Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. After all, this time the Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect were both involved. The two of them were really uncomfortable. It doesn't matter. When each sect is big, there will always be different factions. This is an excellent opportunity for the 5 major sects. It is the best excuse for their sect's top management to eradicate dissidents. Yang Chen was very clear about this kind of power struggle within the sect. You wait and see, soon those people's heads will appear in Chunyang Palace, waiting for us to check. Chapter 12:17. Sun Qingxue was indeed an arrow at the end of its flight. If she only created the terrain illusion, it would not take a lot of effort. The difficulty was that she had to create a lot of fighting illusions, so that those who went deep into the mountain river geographical map could not feel it. This required a lot of thought. Fortunately, things had come to this point and all the guys had been killed. For the time being, Gong Sunling did not need to fully control them. Gong Sunling quickly released the control and let all the disciples of Chunyang Palace return to the real world. In the real world, Chunyang Palace was still Chunyang Palace. There was no change at all. After the raid in the middle of the night, the disciples of Chunyang Palace behaved as if nothing had happened. The only difference was that in an open place on Meiqing Mountain, there were thousands of corpses with their heads separated. Of course, some masters had no corpses at all, leaving only their heads. There were smart people who fled Meiqing Mountain in a hurry as soon as the raid was launched. They naturally knew what happened last night. Even if they left Meiqing Mountain, they could see that Meiqing Mountain was in flames and turned into a pile of rubble. But what they did not expect was that overnight, everything returned to its original state. It seemed that nothing had changed. If there was a change, it was that among the disciples of Chunyang Palace there were a lot less people, and in a certain place there were a lot more corpses. Such a big thing, of course, could not be hidden, and the news spread as fast as possible. Soon, the major sect learned what happened in Chunyang Palace and the result. Speaking of this, almost all the high-level members of the 5 sect did not know about the action against Chunyang Palace this time. Although the Taishaman wanted to destroy Chunyang Palace immediately and take Yang Chen away, Sect Master Li was not crazy enough to deal with Chunyang Palace like this. Several other sect had no reason to become enemies with Chunyang Palace. They still expected to buy better elixirs from Yang Chen. How could they easily do this kind of self-destructive thing? Some things could not be solved by destroying Chunyang Palace or capturing Yang Chen. This was very clear to the high-level members of the major sect. Therefore, everyone now adopted a kind of cooperation to take what they needed. Although the price was a little expensive, it could still maintain the basis of cooperation. The problem was that after such a thing happened, the high-level members of the 5 sect began to be in a difficult position. Especially the Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect, They should have been the sect of the closest cooperation with Chunyang Palace, but they also joined the action of attacking Chunyang Palace, which was really incomprehensible. If there was no clear explanation for this matter, it was believed that no one would deal with the Five Sect in the future. Even a sect like Chunyang Palace was almost destroyed. What else could the other sect do except to wash their necks clean and wait to be slaughtered? The core high-level members of the Five Sect were collectively angry. This was not a small matter. It was related to the reputation of the sect. In particular, the elders below did such a thing behind the core high-level members, which also meant that the high-level members of the sect, who were the core leaders, had lost control of the sect. Regardless of which sect it was, such a thing would mean a disaster of destruction. It was a big taboo that the high-level members could not control the sect. Just like the emperor was a mere figurehead by the ministers, no high-level member of the sect would allow such a thing to happen. In the world of ordinary people, what these criminals did was equivalent to a rebellion, and it must be suppressed with blood. In addition to being angry, the high-level members were also very distressed. On average, each sect had lost several masters of the Deshang stage, hundreds of masters of the Yuanying stage, and countless masters of the Jedon stage. It was not easy for the sect to secretly train these masters. It was unknown how much resources of the sect had been spent, but they were all lost in this battle. Sometimes, when the Five Sect thought of this, they hated the ruthlessness of Chunyang Palace. They did not leave a single survivor, and all of them were executed. But at the same time, they were relatively fortunate that Chunyang Palace did not leave a single survivor, which provided an opportunity for them to reverse the situation in the future. Everyone could explain that they did not know, and then slowly repair the relationship. If they really left a few important people to let them tell the truth, the Five Sect could only fall out with Chunyang Palace. At that time, Chunyang Palace would not have a good time, but the Five Sect would not necessarily have a good time. This time, dozens of masters of the Deshang stage and thousands of masters of the Yuanying stage were annihilated, which had fully explained that Chunyang Palace was not a soft persimmon like before, which could be easily manipulated by them. From the situation on the scene, it could be speculated that Chunyang Palace had probably used a large-scale illusion array. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened, but no one could say what kind of array it was and what kind of function it had. Now, many small sect members had passed a message to the head of the Chunyang Palace through various relationships, wanting to consult whether this mountain protection illusion array could be bought. Several elders of the major sect, who had secretly used the hidden power of the sect, found the abnormality of Chunyang Palace early the next morning, and then they realized that they were finished. Even if this matter was directly instructed by the top management of the sect, they would be pushed out as scapegoats, not to mention that these were the people they secretly used behind the sect's back. They thought that as long as the matter was successful, and they got the secret of Yang Chen, they could make up for their crimes, and even get rewards. They did not expect that the previously weak Chunyang Palace had become so difficult to deal with, which made their confident action directly become a complete annihilation. Returning to the sect was also a death sentence, but no one dared not to go back. If they pleaded guilty, the sect might be able to keep their families. If they dared to abscond, the sect would definitely uproot their families as a warning to others. At this point, even Chunyang Palace could do it a long time ago, let alone the five major sect that had already established their prestige. Chunyang Palace did not say a word on this matter, nor did they raise any protest or other things to any sect. They just kept silent and responded in silence. The more this was the case, the more attention the five major sect attached to it. The five sect masters had to personally go to Chunyang Palace to express goodwill. In addition to their respective core elders, there were also a group of elders of various sect involved in this matter. If they wanted to express goodwill, they must first show enough sincerity. The lives of these people who made mistakes were the sincerity of the five major sect this time. Of course, in addition to these, it was estimated that they had to make many concessions, which depended on the results of their specific negotiations with the head of the palace. Chapter 12:18. Yang Chen would not care about how the sect would deal with it, because the ultimate goal of the 5 major sects to express goodwill was still him. In the end, the 5th-grade alchemist master was still the only one. This kind of extraordinary existence should be looked up by countless people. After the successive arrival of the 5 major sect masters and the head of the palace, the head of the Chunyang Palace and the head of the palace reached a series of cooperation plans with the heads of the 5 major sects. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders, Chunyang Palace seemed to get a bit more things, but this was not unexpected. Your sect had a 5th-grade alchemist master, and could also get the care of the 5 major sects. Many people who did not know the inside story naturally thought that as a collaborator, the heads of the 5 major sects personally came to visit the attacked Chunyang Palace. Although Chunyang Palace did not lose anything, this was a clear signal that the 5 major sects were supporting Chunyang Palace. Some people who vaguely guessed the inside story did not dare to talk casually. Who knew what kind of revenge the 5 major sects would cause if they said something casually? Didn't you see that the Pure Yang Palace had killed all the participants, leaving no future trouble? Who dared to say more about the 5 major sects at this time, that was carrying a lantern and looking for death? This hurdle of the sect was relatively easy to pass, but Yang Chen's hurdle was not so easy. Yang Chen directly used the reason that his retreat cultivation was disturbed, his cultivation deviated, and it was inconvenient to meet the guests, and he refused to see the sect masters of the 5 major sects. It was impossible for Yang Chen to be so angry. This time, the main goal was still directed at Yang Chen. Didn't you see that Yang Chen had directly gathered 10 Dashang stage masters and dozens of Yuanying stage masters? In order to deal with Yang Chen and Gao Yugong Sunling. The purpose of those people was simply clear. If Yang Chen didn't put on any airs and was tricked into being calm, then he would be looked down upon. The more it was like this, the more they had to put on airs. This time, Chunyang Palace was lucky to escape. What about next time? It was impossible for Gong Sunling to stay in the Pure Yang Palace every day and not go out. How many demons and monsters did the other party have yet to use, who dared to say that the Pure Yang Palace could be as safe as Mount Tai? In the end, the sect masters of the 5 great sects didn't get to see Yang Chen, so they could only leave resentfully. However, the Taishanmen, the 5 Elements sect and the Qiankuan sect still had a way. Since Yang Chen and the disciples of their own sect had an affair, at least in their eyes, and the Chunyang Palace did not bind Tao Junki, Shi Wushuang and Murong together this time. The result was clear evidence. In this case, the 3 major sects were simply generous. In front of the head of the palace, Tao Junki, Shi Wushuang and the 5 Murong sisters were given to Yang Chen as slaves and maids. They were at Yang Chen's disposal and the sect would never interfere. This was determined to use the honey trap to the end. Relatively speaking, the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island were very embarrassed. The 2 major sects were clearly related to the Chunyang Palace by marriage, but such a thing happened which was really wrong. They wanted to ask Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan to help them, but after the 2 women heard about it, they directly shook their heads like a rattle drum. The elders of their own sect plotted against their husband, and they still wanted them to say good things. How could this be possible? Not to mention the 2 women, even Elder Hua and Elder Min, when talking about this matter, they were somewhat ashamed to see people. Without the mediation of Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, the 2 major sects had to pay a higher price to get Yang Chen's understanding. It was impossible for them to do things like the 3 major sects, sending a few beautiful women to win over Yang Chen, so they had to think in other aspects. The days of Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan suddenly became much better. All kinds of resources of the sect were simply available to them at any time. A huge amount of resources were piled up to the 2 women. At the same time, The two major sects also decided to take out 10% of the total amount of the income of the innumerable huge mountains and give it to Chunyang Palace. Finally, the impact of the matter at the level of the sect was temporarily minimized. Next, it was time to settle the score. Those elders who were involved at this time began to suffer. Those who were not at the level of elders might not even know what pawns had been arranged in the sect. Therefore, only the elders of the sect could really mobilize these people. Once these matters were investigated, everything would be clear. No one would be able to extricate themselves from it. On the contrary, there were a few innocent fellows who, because they were close to these elders, were also caught in the crossfire and were punished together. Chunyang Palace had never asked for any explanation. From beginning to end, they had been silent on this issue. However, not speaking didn't mean that they didn't want to say anything. Are you kidding me? You almost destroyed my sect. Do you expect me to keep my mouth shut and say nothing? Now I'm not saying that I'm giving you face, but if you go too far, don't blame me for not giving you face. Using the hidden power of the sect without permission directly led to countless losses. In addition, disobeying the orders of the sect and so on, a series of crimes were imposed, and all the elders involved were punished according to the sect rules. This time, the 5 major sect took out a thunderous means. The punishment was not as simple as a few years of closed-door training, but a real killing. Killing so many elders of the sect at one time was something that the 5 major sect had never done. It was unprecedented. Although they didn't dare to say that it would never happen again, it was absolutely unprecedented. However, compared with the lives of these elders, the reputation of the sect and the cooperation with Chunyang Palace and Yangchen were more important. The elders who made mistakes, even if they did not provoke Chunyang Palace and did not provoke Yangchen, would definitely be killed by the sect. No core high-level members of the sect would like such elders. Their wanton actions would definitely bring the sect into a situation of eternal damnation. This time they were lucky. Chunyang Palace did not make a big fuss. Things were still under control. But who could be sure that such a thing would not happen again? Maybe the next time it happened, the target might be the sect master himself? It was related to their own life and death and power. Which core high-level member would be soft-hearted? Adding up the 5 major sect, a total of more than 200 heads were secretly sent to Chunyang Palace for the palace master to see. This was the explanation given by the 5 major sect to Chunyang Palace, and it was also an attitude that must be put on. Although it was secret and not made public, it was already a great honor for the head of the palace. Sure enough, what Yangchen said is right. After the palace master looked at the heads and confirmed the authenticity of the heads, he returned to the council hall and talked to the other elders about this matter. He couldn't help but say with a smile, looking at the heads sent by their own people, it's really more refreshing than us personally chopping them off. Chapter 12:19. Yang Chen did not expect the 3 major sect to be so shameless that they directly gave 7 beautiful women to him, and whether they were slaves or maids was decided by Yang Chen. Of course, this reflected the importance and flattery of the 3 major sect to Yang Chen, but it also directly pushed Yang Chen to the opposite side of the admirers of the 7 fairies. Yang Chen had already been regarded as occupying the 4 fairies. This matter had already made many talented cultivators angry, but dare not speak out. Now he even extended his claws to the names of Fairy Junkie, Fairy Qing Mu and Murong 5 fairies. If this could be tolerated, what could not be tolerated? Yang Chen had to have a headache. How to arrange for the 7 girls had become his biggest trouble now. What was even more annoying was that Gao Yu, as his wife and master, not only did not help him solve the trouble, but even added fuel to the fire. Since their sect says so, then why don't you accept them as slaves? Gao Yu's bright eyes turned, as if she had returned to the naughtiness of her teenage years, and said with a smile, I also want to taste the taste of being served by several Deshang stage fairies. Speaking of this, it was still because of Gong Sunling. Gong Xuanling's mountain river geographical map was too powerful. After so many years of sacrificial refining, it had become very mature. Recently, Yang Chen pushed Gong Xuanling's spiritual awareness cultivation base to the realm of the second-grade human immortal, so that she could control the mountain river geographical map more and more easily. The guys trapped in the mountain river geographical map became the victims of Gong Xuanling's sparring partners. After experiencing the experience of the demon continent, Gong Xuanling's combat power had risen sharply. In the mountain river geographical map, she was purely abusing so many Deshang stage masters. In the end, those masters were also beaten by Gong Xuanling, and they were obedient. Everyone also knew that they were in the illusion constructed by Gong Xuanling, and no one had a fluke plan. Therefore, they joined forces on weekdays and began to study some cultivation methods together. After the attack was launched, the scene that the 5 Deshang stage masters who rushed in saw was that one of these masters was publicizing his own cultivation experience. It was conceivable that this kind of occasion was interrupted by a few of them like clowns. These guys who had been suppressed by Gong Xuanling but were still powerful in the demon continent were furious. Without saying anything, these masters surrounded them and did not use much spiritual power. They directly used their fists and feet to beat them until they were beaten black and blue. After being abused countless times, they were thrown out and waited for Gong Xuanling to deal with them. Poor 5 guys, how could they think that as masters of the Deshang stage, one day they would be beaten like this by this kind of peasant trick? After Gong Xuanling subdued this group of Deshang stage masters, she naturally enjoyed their service. This made Gao Yu very envious, but she didn't have such a powerful magic weapon as the mountain river geographical map. She could only watch Gong Xuanling enjoy it, or when Yang Chen was there, she also benefited. As for herself, she never took the initiative to mention it to Gong Xuanling. Although Gao Yu also knew that as long as she asked, Gong Xuanling would definitely agree, she was not willing to put down this face. "Do you really want it?" Yang Chen didn't think that Gao Yu was joking. In fact, as long as Gao Yu proposed it, Yang Chen could do it. He would definitely spare no effort to help Gao Yu achieve it. But this matter was very difficult for Yang Chen, so he had to determine Gao Yu's attitude, not jealous. You accepted them, at best they are just a few concubines. Can they still fight with the legal wife for a husband? Gao Yu had absolute confidence in this regard. She could feel Yang Chen's mind from his attitude of listening to her, so there was no psychological pressure. Speaking of it, Gao Yu still loved Yang Chen. There was no way around it. Yang Chen's body had been transformed by the life essence of more than 20,000 immortals. In some aspects, he was so strong that Gao Yu, Gong Xuanling, Sun Qingxue, and Shi Shanshan were not Yang Chen's opponents. Although the way of double cultivation did not make people indulge in carnal desire, Gao Yu did not want Yang Chen to always be so restrained. Gao Yu was also clear about the grievances between Chunyang Palace and Taishanmen. Just like the attitude of Grandmaster Wang Yong, Gao Yu was also of the same origin. "Since I can't touch your foundation for the time being, I will collect some interest from you first. I will let Fairy Junkie of your sect be a slave, which is also a small interest. Anyway, you came to me on your own, so it is not a robbery." It was also because Gao Yu was clear about the grievances between Chunyang Palace and Taishanmen that she was more willing to unite with the forces of several other major sects to fight against Taishanmen together. In this regard, Shi Wushuang and the 5 Murong sisters were very good mediums. As long as she sincerely accepted them, she would inevitably get help from the 5 Elements sect and the Qiankuan sect in the future. Of course, the power struggle of the major sect was very cruel and complicated, which was fully illustrated by this incident. The sect master did not allow it, but some people couldn't control themselves and had to do it. If this move could draw in a few people inside the major sect, it was always good. The attack on Chunyang Palace made the cooperative relationship between Chunyang Palace and the 5 major sect directly drop to the freezing point. Although it was still a serious cooperation according to the original agreement, everyone could feel the invisible gap. The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect were particularly prominent. The good situation was destroyed by a few guys who acted without authorization. The relationship that had been maintained for hundreds of years was destroyed overnight. If they wanted to make up for it, they didn't know how much effort it would take. At the thought of this, the sect masters of the two major sects couldn't wait to tear those disobedient guys into pieces. Elder Hua of the Blue Cloud sect did not suppress his anger and almost turned the sect upside down. All of the old friends and acquaintances of the elder who had made the decision had been investigated, and those who were implicated had been executed. The only thing missing was the execution of their entire family. Elder Hua was even more tough. If anyone in the sect dared to make her disciples unhappy in the future, then don't blame her for taking action, so that the family of the person in charge would never have to be unhappy. The Green Jade Immortal Island was even more embarrassed. It was not until the sect's investigation that the senior members of the Green Jade Immortal Island discovered that the elders Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei, who should have been punished in the Eye of the Sea, only stayed in the Eye for less than a month and were released. Their whereabouts were still unknown. What was even more outrageous was that even the jade cards that marked their primordial spirits were missing, making it impossible for the sect to track their whereabouts by relying on the jade card. What was more outrageous than this to challenge the authority of the Lord of Tantai? Under the anger, the Lord of Tantai and Elder Min teamed up and almost uprooted the people of Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei. All the heads were sent to the Chunyang Palace. It was true that they were masters of the sect, but the less the masters of the sect, the better. Chapter 12:20. Even the people who were personally ordered by the Lord of Tantai to be sent to the Eye of the Sea for punishment could disappear silently after a month or two. This has already shown the fatal shortcomings of the Green Jade Immortal Island in some aspect. If combined with the previous matters of Shirshanshan, it could almost be said that the Lord of Tantai had almost no right to speak in the Green Jade Immortal Island, and it was difficult to say whether her orders could go out of the main island. For such a thing, if the Lord of Tantai could endure it, then what else couldn't he endure? In recent hundreds of years, the strength of the sect has changed with each passing day. Originally, the Lord of Tantai was watching a thriving Green Jade Immortal Island striding to catch up with the Taishanmen and become the #1 sect that could compete with the Taishanmen. The Lord of Tantai himself was also promoted to the Deshang stage, and when he was preparing for his grand plan, such a thing happened. How could the Lord of Tantai step down? The elder in charge of the Eye of the Sea, a series of masters who had a close relationship with Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei, were all investigated frantically. This was not a joke. Everyone was directly taken to the law enforcement hall and asked one by one. Who gave them such courage? At the same time, the Green Jade Immortal Island did not forget to express goodwill to Chunyang Palace. In any case, this time they did too much. They attacked their allies, and they were still allies who were cooperating closely. Even if the Green Jade Immortal Island had 10,000 reasons, at least on the surface, they had to end the alliance relationship first. Finally, after giving up a lot of benefits, the Green Jade Immortal Island got the understanding of Chunyang Palace. Their explanation was also accepted by Chunyang Palace. Which sect did not have a few black sheep, and it was normal to have a few scum. Even in Chunyang Palace, wasn't there also a master like Liang Xiaoming? However, it was hard to say for Yang Chen. Yang Chen had been avoiding meeting him. There were a few times when the Lord of Tantai wanted to talk to him in person, but he did not get the chance. He could only leave resentfully. The Green Jade Immortal Island, which already had Shirshanshan as Yang Chen's wife, couldn't learn from the three major sects and put a beauty as a slave or something. The furious Lord of Tantai vented all his anger on those who made mistakes. The sect had placed a secret bounty on Bei Shuangyu and Lu Ziwei's heads, and the elder who had let them go had his cultivation crippled and demoted to a servant. From a high and mighty elder of the sect to a lowly servant, no matter how open-minded a cultivator was, he couldn't accept it. On the first day, the elder chose to commit suicide. However, her suicide did not bring any benefits to others. Instead, it made the sect even angrier. Did she want to use her death to threaten the sect? I will fulfill your wish. Therefore, at least more than 20 elders were given a choice in front of them: die or become a servant, choose for yourself. A few of them with a strong temper chose to die directly. The rest were not so determined and could only choose to be a humiliating servant. If being a servant could one day return to the peak, then they had actually blocked the way back to the peak. There were countless examples of cultivation being crippled. In recent hundreds of years, Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were all like this. The most incredible one was Mu Bo's grandfather, Mu Mingyuan, who had been crippled, and it was impossible for there to be any miracle, but he still directly ascended with the help of Yang Chen. As long as Yang Chen made a move, what was the point of crippling their cultivation? The question was, would Yang Chen make a move for them? Would he make a move for the people suspected of attacking the Chunyang Palace? There was no need to think about it. Not only the 5 major sects were in a mess, but even other small sects were also in the same situation. A sect like the Chunyang Palace could not avoid such a day, let alone the sects that were not as good as the Chunyang Palace. Fortunately, their sect did not have a superstar like Yang Chen who attracted the firepower. For the time being, the security concerns were still a little less. But on the other hand, their worries had to be raised to the table. Yang Chen announced to the public that he was injured and recuperated, and some auctions in the Wanbao Tower stopped. In fact, all the auctions related to Yang Chen's elixirs were stopped. Appearance Pill, Second-Grade Inner Sensing Pill, Questioning Inner Heart Pill, and Century-Old Pill were all no longer auctioned. This made many people anxious. Not to mention other things, just the face-halting pill alone, among 100 female cultivators, 99.5 of them wanted it. The remaining half were still in their youth and were short of money, so they planned to buy it after a while. How could these female cultivators not go crazy when the goods were cut off? Those who really had the ability to bid for the appearance pill, in addition to the representatives of the major sect, were actually those powerful female cultivators, or the concubines of some powerful cultivators. The power of these people was quite amazing. Those who needed the century-old pill and the questioning inner heart pill, needless to say, at least had to be at the peak Yuanying stage and the Deshang stage, otherwise it would simply be a waste. The power of these people was even more terrifying. Wasn't there a lot of bones on Meiqing Mountain? Some people deliberately went to see it and recognized some of them or some sect. Without saying a word, they turned around and went down the mountain. Within a few months, they brought back a lot of heads. It was said that these heads were the heads of a certain family or a certain sect, and they were specially brought for Master Yang to vent his anger. From beginning to end, Yang Chen did not say a word more, and the same was true for Chunyang Palace. Those sect and families that participated were uprooted one by one. Those people were so ruthless that they left no way for anyone to live at all. The 5 major sects could only pinch their noses and swallow this loss in silence. If these exposed chess pieces could make Yang Chen forgive them, they would probably be willing to do it themselves. Yang Chen used the excuse of recuperating to accompany his 2 lovely wives in his dragon palace, and spent 2 years leisurely. During these 2 years, Yang Chen gave Gong Sunling one last suggestion. The power of the geographical map of Mountain River was already strong enough. The more masters it collected, the more powerful it would be. But there was another point. The longer the masters stayed in the geographical map of Mountain River, the more compatible they would be with the aura of the geographical map of Mountain River. Similarly, the power of the geographical map of Mountain River would be greater. In this regard, Gong Sunling did a good job. She had begun to let the masters in the map learn from each other, and declared that as long as their cultivation could break through the illusory array, they would be free. Those old guys who knew that they could not go out for the time being burst out with great enthusiasm for cultivation, and they were very happy to learn from each other. What Yang Chen told Gong Sunling was that when she needed it, she could use these Deshang stage masters with different attributes as materials for the array, and the power would definitely be many times stronger than using some ordinary materials. Especially when these Deshang stage masters were now obedient to Gong Sunling, the difficulty was many times simpler. Chapter 12:21. Using people to set up the array? Gong Sunling had such an idea for the first time, but it was not impossible. The masters in the Mountain River geographical map, because they were controlled by the array in the map, would involuntarily listen to Gong Sunling, but this did not mean that their cultivation base would also be reduced. If these masters cooperated with each other, it could really be used to try this possibility. It was scary to think about it. An ordinary 5 elements array, suddenly there were dozens of Deshang stage masters attacking. Which person could survive? If they used a little more complicated array, wouldn't it make people even more crazy? When she thought of it, she would try it. Gong Sunling happily grabbed a large group of old devils and began to experiment. Those guys who seemed to be complaining endlessly, no one could see that they were a group of terrifying old devils of the Great Ascension stage who could kill without blinking an eye. So far, Yang Chen has successively pointed out Sun Qingxue, Shi Shanshan and Gong Sunling. The only one left was Gao Yu. Are you going to give me a final suggestion? Gao Yu leaned against Yang Chen's arms, enjoying the warmth of Yang Chen's arms. Holding a carving tool in one hand, she was carving something on Yang Chen's wristband and asked. No. Yang Chen shook his head directly and answered simply and neatly. Why? Gao Yu was a little surprised, stopped the work in her hand, raised her head and looked at Yang Chen, and asked strangely. Because I want to protect you for a lifetime. Yang Chen replied without thinking, as if it was a voice from the bottom of his heart. His arms were also slightly tightened. He wanted to hold Gao Yu more tightly. Only herself, in Yang Chen's mind, was always different. Gao Yu's heart was sweet, she couldn't help but pucker up her lips and gently peck on Yang Chen's face, then lowered her head and patted Yang Chen's arm. She said coquettishly, "Relax, it's at the last moment." Yang Chen obeyed and relaxed his arm, allowing Gao Yu to carve on his wrist guard. Now, in addition to the magic treasures that Yang Chen used before, everything he wore and used was all taken care of by Gao Yu. Even the simplest accessories, Gao Yu would carefully design them so that after Yang Chen wore them, he would look outstanding. So, what should I do next? Gao Yu began to work while asking Yang Chen. After Yang Chen and her spiritual awareness double cultivation upgraded her spiritual awareness to the 2nd grade human immortal stage, this kind of multitasking became very simple. She could even cultivate at the same time without any delay. For the time being, I should focus on refining the dragon horn flying sword, Yang Chen said frankly. So far, Yang Chen had not thought of a further cultivation direction for Gao Yu, but refining the dragon horn flying sword would not go wrong, plus condensing the spiritual power, at least for hundreds of years, she could not consider doing anything else. You're biased. Gao Yu rarely imitated Sun Qingxue's appearance, and said to Yang Chen, "Little Shui, Shanshan and Aling both have a cultivation direction for the next few thousand years, but I don't. I plan to go to Big Brother Li Qing for a while, and ask him to give me some pointers." Yang Chen said truthfully. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were both good, they both had the reference of their previous lives. Yang Chen could easily specify the direction. Gong Sunling had the Mountain River geographical map by chance, and could almost be said to be invincible in the world. Even if she couldn't beat the enemy, she would not be unable to escape. Only on Gao Yu's side, Yang Chen did not dare to make a decision easily. After all, in his mind, the position of his master was still the most important one. During the 2 years when Yang Chen was recovering, some small things continued to happen. The 5 major sect almost purged a group of elders in the sect, which was unimaginable in the past. Fortunately, the 5 major sect did things in an orderly manner, and these things were done one after another in 2 years, and the charges were also very convincing, so that people could not see any connection with the attack on Chunyang Palace. On the contrary, there was another small thing in the Green Jade Immortal Island that was related to Shi Shanshan. A Deshang stage elder who was about to fall saw the opportunity and directly challenged Shi Shanshan in the sect. No matter how Shi Shanshan shirked, the other party insisted on fighting, even if the Lord of Tantai came out to stop him, there was no way. Anyway, he was destined to end in tragedy. If he could drag Shi Shanshan into the water, he would see if Yang Chun could continue to be proud. After Shi Shanshan repeatedly shirked, the other party began to insult Shi Shanshan and Yang Chun. This could be tolerated, what could not be tolerated? Shi Shanshan accepted the challenge on the spot. In the eyes of the elders of the sect, after Shi Shanshan strongly requested to arrange the battle of the arena, Shi Shanshan and the elder of the Deshang stage began to duel. In order to avoid hurting other disciples, this time Shi Shanshan insisted on fighting on a blank island, and the sect finally had to agree. The Lord of Tantai even personally told Shi Shanshan to find a chance to solve the opponent. There was no need to worry about it, the sect would support her. It could be said that in the eyes of a group of masters, Shi Shanshan, who jumped high, sent a sword chi to the opponent below. She couldn't control this sword chi at all. In just 2 years, it was only enough for the sword chi to be more familiar with her body. As soon as the sword chi came out, an elder of the late Deshang stage, comparable to the master of Elder Min Min Huafeng, was directly turned into powder without any resistance. Not only that, on the island full of protective formations, there was a terrifying movement of the formation breaking everywhere. If those onlookers didn't run fast, they might be involved. The final result was that an island with a radius of almost 2 miles disappeared directly and no longer existed. Dozens of masters who arranged the protective formation tried to resist when the formation was attacked. As a result, they were injured by the shock and vomited blood. In the end, only a group of people were left standing in the air 10 miles away and looked at each other. After this, Shi Shanshan apologized herself and went to the Eye of the Sea to accept punishment. How could this be? The Lord of Tantai had no choice but to go to the Eye of the Sea to visit Shi Shanshan in person, hoping that she could change this decision. Otherwise, this was simply a direct slap in the face of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Shi Shanshan explained for a long time that the pressure of the Eye of the Sea helped her to subdue the sword chi, and after personally demonstrating the performance of the Eye of the Sea without the slightest obstacle, the Lord of Tantai was relieved. But when she returned to the sect, she sent the news to Chunyang Palace as soon as possible, and the explanation was also attached. Of course, Yang Chun received the news. He did not comment on Shi Shanshan's decision. This was also good, the pressure did help to absorb the sword chi. He had been pretending to be injured for more than 2 years, and it was time to go out. Chunyang Palace announced the good news of Master Yang's recovery in the first place. For a while, Chunyang Palace, which had been quiet for a long time, began to be lively again. Chapter 12:22. Appearance Pill and Inner Sensing Pill began to be auctioned in Wanbao Tower again. Those who were anxious finally breathed a sigh of relief, as long as they continued to sell it. They hoped that this would not happen again in the future. After coming out, Yang Chun shocked everyone. It seemed that he was really very weak because of the injury. If the master of the palace didn't know that this was Yang Chun's plan, maybe they would be scared. It was just that Yang Chun came forward. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling did not appear in front of everyone. Looking at Yang Chen's appearance, it was estimated that the 2 women were also injured. It seemed that this time, they were indeed disturbed during the double cultivation, which led to cultivation deviation. Otherwise, a little injury would not make Yang Chun himself become like this. "Greetings, master." As soon as he came out of the Dragon Palace and returned to Gao Yu's small courtyard, Yang Chun heard a few sweet calls in unison. Then, he saw the Taishaman's fairy Junkie, the Qianquan sect's fairy Qingmu, and the 5 elements sect's Murong 5 sisters were bowing down to him. Are you kidding me? Yang Chun had been cultivating in the Dragon Palace. Although the news from the outside could come in, Yang Chun really did not take the matter of several women as slaves seriously. Suddenly, the 7 girls came like this. Even Yang Chun felt a little awkward. Master. Shi Wuxuang raised her head and was about to explain, but she was directly interrupted by Yang Chun. Don't say it. Yang Chun decisively denied. If you want to stay, everyone will do the same. Don't say anything about master and slave. I will go to see the master of the palace first, you wait for me here. Yes. This time, the 7 girls agreed in unison, and they were very happy. In fact, from the depths of their hearts, how could they be willing to let themselves change from a high and mighty fairy to a slave of others? Even if this person was Yang Chun. After Yang Chun left, the 7 girls looked at each other. All of them looked happy. However, they seemed to be very worried about Yang Chun's attitude. Yang Chun said that he was going to visit the head of the palace, but it was really just a visit, and there were not many other things. In any case, he had been staying in the sect for quite some time now. If there were any matters that needed to be discussed, they just hadn't met in person yet. Now that he was out of seclusion, he had to do everything in an open and above-board manner. How did you get hurt so badly? After Tao Junkie waited for Yang Chun to return from the head of the palace, she was the first to eagerly ask, "Can't your medicinal pills treat it?" Shi Wuxuang and the 5 Murong sisters did not speak, but they all seemed to be very worried about Yang Chun. Several pairs of beautiful eyes stared at Yang Chun worriedly, making Yang Chun feel very uncomfortable. I have hurt some of my roots. Yang Chun replied faintly, it can't be made up in a short time. All the women were silent. Cultivators were most afraid of hurting their root. Once this was the case, not only would their cultivation be damaged, but their future cultivation would also be greatly affected. Unless there was a way to replenish it as soon as possible, it would be considered half destroyed. Master, if this concubine is a cauldron, can you recover faster? Tao Junkie's initial address seemed very awkward. It seemed that she wanted to call him her husband, but she couldn't say it. She could only call him a gentleman, but she called herself a concubine. Fairy Junkie had long said that if Yang Chun was willing to have dual cultivation, she was willing to serve as Yang Chun's cauldron. Now, she really kept her words and took the initiative to say this in front of Yang Chun. This concubine is also willing. Seeing that Yang Chun was a little slow after listening to it, how could the other women let go of this opportunity? They all said so in unison, and even changed the address to concubine. Why do you have to do this? Yang Chun shook his head with a wry smile. He and the palace master had already discussed it. Since they couldn't refuse the arrangement of the 3 major sects for a while, they would temporarily pretend to be polite and slowly drag it out. Even if it was necessary, they would also let them see the power of Yang Chun. Maybe it would slowly dispel some of the major sects' suspicions. However, the performance of several fairies was a posture of not giving up until they achieved their goal, which made Yang Chun sigh. Every sect would have such loyal and devoted disciples who would do anything for the sake of the sect. Except for the hatred between the Taishaman and himself, if he treated the other two too poorly, it would be a bit unreasonable. In particular, he needed to rely on the power of the sect for revenge in the future. If you can recover as soon as possible, we will also have more appearance pill to use. Shi Wuxuang didn't say much else, but directly attributed the reason to his own needs. In fact, the 7 fairies in front of him, except for Tao Junkie who had used the appearance pill, the others were all young and beautiful fairies. You really don't have to do this. Yang Chun could only reply very formally, Sister Junkie, Sister Wuxuang, Sister Murong, you seem to have forgotten who I am. As soon as the words sister came out, the 7 girls were overjoyed. Since Yang Chun began to call them this way, It meant that the things that those guys had caused before could finally be solved. However, what did Yang Chen mean by this? He was an alchemist, but if he could cure the injury, wouldn't it have been cured long ago? Why wait until now? You are a 5th-grade alchemist, one of the Murong sisters said. Yang Chen couldn't tell which of the 5 sisters was which unless he used his divine awareness to sense the other's 5 elements. However, this would be too rude. Yes, I am a 5th-grade alchemist. Yang Chen nodded with a smile. If that's the case, why do you still need to use the means of harming others to benefit yourself? Then why don't you refine some medicinal pills and cure them before coming out of seclusion? Fairy Junkie asked curiously. She really planned to sacrifice a part of her cultivation to help Yang Chen to make up for the previous crack. She was a little confused by Yang Chen's word. There is a lack of a suitable main ingredient. Yang Chen smiled slightly and replied. What medicinal ingredient? I will ask the sect to send it over. Fairy Junkie immediately took on the responsibility. However, as soon as Fairy Junkie said this, the other fairies also expressed that they could also help to solve the problem. Yang Chen just lacked medicinal herbs, it was too simple. He didn't dare to say anything else. As long as Yang Chen needed medicinal herbs of 10,000 years and 100,000 years, if the 3 major sects couldn't come up with it, then no one in the world could take it out. If Yang Chen used medicinal ingredients from any sect, it would mean that the relationship between that sect and Yang Chen was closer. Who would let go of such an opportunity? Any medicinal ingredient that can supplement the source of life will do, Yang Chen said with a smile, but his eyes were looking at the 7 girls as if he was waiting for their reply. Chapter 12:23. The 7 fairies were a little dumbfounded. They had heard of many medicinal herbs, but what medicinal herbs could replenish one's life source? They had only heard of medicinal herbs that could save one's life, increase one's spiritual power, or something else. They had never heard of medicinal herbs that could replenish one's life source. It's something that can increase one's lifespan. Yang Chen explained it in an easy-to-understand way, and all the girls were stunned for a while, and then all of them were like frosted eggplants, wilting. Since ancient times, apart from the legend of the 7th-grade Immortal pill, they had never heard of anything that could increase a cultivator's lifespan. There were quite a few that could increase a mortal's lifespan, but at best, it could only improve a mortal's physique and allow them to live a few more years. But for cultivators, these were useless. Only then did the girls realize that Yang Chen seemed to have injured his lifespan this time. For a moment it was unknown if the 7 girls were really concerned about Yang Chen, or if they were just putting on an act in front of Yang Chen, but all of them had anxious expressions on their faces. What should I do? What should I do? Shi Wuxuang racked her brains, and her eyes were already filled with anxious tears. Yang Chen was stunned. Could it be that Fairy Qing Mu really had feelings for me? That shouldn't be the case, right? June, if I become your human cauldron, can I help you recover a portion of your lifespan? Tao Junkie asked again with an indomitable look on her face. When she said the word June, everyone could feel that she had silently added the word June in front of it. The moment she asked this question, the other girls stopped and looked straight at Yang Chen, waiting for Yang Chen's answer. From their eyes, Yang Chen could even tell that as long as Yang Chen nodded, they would all be willing to do it. Of course. Yang Chen nodded slightly. However, the heavens have their own way of balance. If there is more on one side, there will be less on the other side. There is no shortcut. I am willing to be your human cauldron. As long as June can recover, it is not a big deal for me to suffer a little loss. He didn't know what reason Fairy Junkie had, but to make such a decision was enough to move Yang Chen. I am also willing to be your human cauldron. I am also willing to be your human cauldron. Zais. After Fairy Junkie finished speaking, Fairy Qing Mu and the 5 Murong sisters stepped forward one by one, expressing that they were also willing to sacrifice themselves for Yang Chen. Why are you doing this? Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh. Greenwood Fairy gritted her teeth and finally said, "Some of the elders of my sect participated in the attack on Chunyang Palace. Although it was not the will of my sect, it was the will of the elders of my sect after all. This is the fault of my sect to Chunyang Palace and to you. I have come to atone for my crime. Not to mention being a human cauldron, even if you want this concubine's life, this concubine will gladly suffer." As soon as she opened her mouth, the scene immediately became silent. Fairy Junkie and the 5 Murong fairies wanted to say something, but when they saw Yang Chen's expression, they held back and did not say anything. "Do you think so too?" Yang Chen sighed and asked. This time, the girls did not speak. They just nodded their beautiful heads heavily. Why bother to suffer on behalf of others? Yang Chen shook his head and said regretfully. At this point, the scene suddenly became awkward. After a while, Yang Chen suddenly realized that this was an excellent opportunity to get rid of the entanglement of the 7 girls. In that case, there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will specify a few specific medicinal herbs. If you help me find them, we will write it off. How about it? Yang Chen's tone immediately became light as he asked the 7 girls. Just when Yang Chen felt that as long as the 7 girls nodded, Yang Chen would find a few relatively precious medicinal herbs that were nothing to the 3 great sect, allowing them to smoothly complete their task and have nothing to do with each other, something strange suddenly happened. This lowly concubine, Shi Wushuang, has admired young master for many years. I am willing to be young master's servant, concubine, and servant girl. I swear on my heart demon that I will be young master's woman in life and young master's ghost in death. I hope that young master will not abandon me. Shi Wushuang seemed to have already predicted Yang Chen's plan. Her words were spoken quickly and urgently. When she finished speaking, Yang Chen was already stunned on the spot and could not say another word. Shi Wushuang was not the only smart person. Tao Junkie and the Murong sisters immediately understood something from Shi Wushuang's firm tone and Yang Chen's words just now. One by one, according to Shi Wushuang's words just now, they all repeated all of them, and finally they all swore on their heart demon. It seemed that all the girls were psychologically prepared that it was impossible to become a co-wife like Gao Yu. Therefore, it seemed that Yang Chen could directly choose to be a concubine, a servant girl, or a servant girl. However, looking at Yang Chen's appearance, was he really willing to let the 7 fairies be a servant girl? If he really did so, it was estimated that Yang Chen would be cursed to death by countless people who admired the 7 girls. Yang Chen was stunned and speechless. The door of the room made a soft sound, but it was Gao Yu who came out of the door. "Greetings, mistress." This time, the 7 girls had no other considerations and bowed to Gao Yu. Gao Yu was Yang Chen's first wife, so they had to greet her. "Get up," Gao Yu said softly. "In the future, everyone will be sisters, so there is no need to be so polite." When she spoke, she made the decision for Yang Chen. The 7 girls were all overjoyed and stood up. Gao Yu said that everyone was sisters. Didn't that mean that at least they were concubines and they would not be slaves? My husband is soft-hearted, and he can't bear to see beautiful women begging him. Ah Ling and I will be in seclusion for a while, so please take care of my husband. Gao Yu directly carried the style of an elder sister and ordered, "Take good care of my husband. Don't let any woman get close to my husband casually, do you hear me?" "Yes, sister." The 7 girls agreed in unison. Their answering voices were full of that kind of feeling of joy. They were willing to call her sister. Even if the 7 girls were older than Gao Yu, they still had to call Gao Yu sister. "My husband's health hasn't been good recently, so don't let him exhaust himself too much." Gao Yu turned her head and glanced at Yang Chen, who was already frowning miserably. After saying that, she turned around and entered the room again. "Farewell, sister," the 7 girls said in unison as they watched Gao Yu disappear behind the door. Then, their faces were all filled with joy. "Husband, what kind of medicinal herbs do you need? Tell me, and I will go to the sect to find them for you. Fairy Junkie was the closest to Yang Chen, so she was the first to go to Yang Chen's side. She called Yang Chen husband happily and asked, "Yes, husband. Just tell me what medicinal herbs you need." Shi Wuxuang also had the same attitude. Suddenly, they became very familiar. She walked behind Yang Chen and naturally began to massage Yang Chen's shoulders. Chapter 12:24. Yang Chen was completely speechless. Gao Yu's move made all his previous plans fall through. He didn't know what Gao Yu was thinking. How could she make such a decision? However, perhaps it was the heart demon oath of the 7 fairies that moved Gao Yu's heart. She always wanted to find a few more people for Yang Chen to serve Yang Chen. The fairies Sun Qingxue, Shi Shanshan, and Gong Sunling could not accompany Yang Chen for a long time because of their cultivation. Finding a few more people might make Yang Chen not be disturbed too much. In particular, the origin of these fairies, the 3 major sect, Taishanmen, Qiankuan sect, and 5 elements sect. If Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan's Blue Cloud sect and Green Jade, Immortal Island were added, the 5 major sects were complete. He believed that with Gao Yu's words, these few would definitely drive away any women who had the intention to approach Yang Chen. In this regard, Gao Yu and the others were completely insufficient. Gao Yu Gong Sunling was born in Chunyang Palace, and sometimes she couldn't make this kind of posture. Shi Shanshan didn't care about other things at all. Sun Qingxue was happy for Yang Chen. With these few more, they could effectively do this. Perhaps this was also one of Gao Yu's considerations. Especially with Gao Yu's attitude, the 3 major sect would also further win over Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace. Even if they wanted to deal with Taishanmen in the future, they only needed to hide it from Tao Junkie. Even through this, they could unite the other 4 major sects. Since Gao Yu nodded and personally came forward, Yang Chen would certainly not make a different attitude from Gao Yu. When dealing with the 7 girls, his face was also a lot more relaxed. Actually, your sect might not necessarily have this medicine. As Yang Chen spoke, a jade slip suddenly appeared in his hand, and he handed it to Tao Junkie. Tao Junkie was taken aback. She took it and checked it with her divine sense, and a strange look appeared on her face. Then, with a strange expression, he handed the jade slip to Murong, who was next to him. The 5 Murong sisters took turns to look at it, then handed it to Shi Wuxuang. Everyone had an indescribable expression on their faces. "It's just a myth, husband." Shi Wuxuang read it word for word before returning the jade slip to Yang Chen with a bitter smile. How could such a peach be found in the mortal world? It was unknown where this jade slip had come from, but it was also unknown where this jade slip had been collected to record such miscellaneous matters. One of them recorded a type of immortal peach that could increase one's lifespan. Usually, for this kind of folk legend, everyone would laugh it off. It was understandable to use it as something to chat and relieve boredom, but if it was taken seriously, it would be a joke. That's why all the women had such a look on their faces. It was really unexpected that a Yuanying stage master, a 5th-grade alchemist master, would believe such nonsense things. Sometimes, people think that there must be some secret for me to become a 5th-grade alchemist master. I can get some good things, and the same is true. Yang Chen smiled and said to the 7 girls around him, "Today, I will let you see how I get something that others can't get." Yang Chen set up a table in front of him, teapot and teacups, brewed a pot of black tea, and everyone had a share. After everyone sat down around the table, Yang Chen took out another piece of jade slip and said, "This is one of the hundreds of thousands of miscellaneous books in my collection. Look at the records inside." After everyone took turns to read it, it was still a folk legend. There was a monkey who ate an immortal peach and became a monkey spirit. This one was obtained from the book collection of the Blue Cloud sect. Yang Chen took out another piece of jade slip. The women looked again, and it was still a folk legend. Behind the 2 jade screens, there was an immortal peach, and after eating it, one could immediately ascend to immortality. After taking it, Mu Mingyuan has already done this kind of thing once, but it was not an immortal peach, but a medicinal pill refined by Yang Chun. Although the women felt that it was a bit ridiculous, their expressions had been a lot more cautious. This one is the book collection of the Green Jade, Immortal Island. Yang Chun seemed to sincerely want to show the women how to find peerless treasures from folklore, and took out another piece of jade slip. It was still a folk legend, the immortal peach, the fated get it. There are similar legends in the book collection of Taishanmen. Yang Chun took out the book collection obtained from Taishanmen this time. The content was nothing more than this. A fisherman accidentally lost his way into a peach forest, fell asleep after eating a peach, and when he woke up, he could no longer find the peach forest. The Five Elements sect also has it. Another piece of jade slip was directly given to the Murong Five Sisters. According to folklore, some people saw a peach pit falling from the sky on a night of lightning and thunder, turning into a hill, and the two gates in front of the hill were closed. Qianquan sect also has a similar one. This piece of jade slip was given to Shi Wushuang. It was also a folk legend. A certain barren mountain turned into a peach forest overnight, and the petals fell in profusion. Scholars often came, and it lasted for a long time. These are all legends, and some belong to the records of scholars. Eating the peaches of a certain place, the body is light and healthy, and so on. Yang Chen almost took out dozens of jade slips at once and put them on the table, allowing the women to look at them one by one. The women took these jade slips and examined them for a long time, but they were unable to effectively string all the clues together. "Husband, is there any mystery in it?" Shi Wushuang thought that she was peerless, so she immediately asked. She was quite familiar with the word husband. Yang Chen sighed in his heart and looked at the other 6 women. Tao Junki and the 5 Murong sisters were also waiting for Yang Chen's answer. Yang Chen picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then he said, "These literati and poets have recorded it. It's not very useful. It's just used to support some things." "Why is that?" "Husband." Shi Wushuang still did not understand. Logically speaking, they are the people who have something to say. The other women also nodded. "Don't talk about strange things, these guys never believe in certain things." Yang Chen shook his head and said disdainfully, "Moreover, sometimes the things that scholars write down are not necessarily true." The women all agreed on this point, and Tao Junki turned to ask doubtfully, "Husband, are those legends the main point?" Tao Junki also added husband in almost every sentence, as if she was afraid that Yang Chen would renege on his words. "That's right." Yang Chen replied with certainty. "Those legends are the real main point. Because they are legends, when some people record them, they will not consciously change them, so we can see the original appearance. The things that scholars left behind have already been changed by themselves or others countless times." Chapter 12:25. The 5 Murong sisters had been listening and studying the jade slip. There seemed to be a tacit understanding among the 5 sisters. When everyone was thinking about a problem at the same time, they would come to the same conclusion. "Husband, according to these legends, a peach pit fell from the sky a long time ago and turned into a small mountain. Then, it was closed by 2 gates. What does that mean?" One of the Murong sisters asked. "It might be the location of that small mountain. There are 2 peaks or cliffs that look like gates in front," Yang Chen answered immediately. "The fisherman couldn't find it after eating it. Maybe there was a maze and it was sent out of the formation." Another of the Murong sisters said, "There are peach blossoms everywhere. Maybe it's a simple peach blossom maze." "That's right," Yang Chen said with a smile. "That makes sense. What else?" "Monkeys ate it before. Could it be that the place is where monkeys live? Or maybe it's not far away." Shi Wushuang also joined in the analysis. "This counts as one." Yang Chen nodded again. "There are many peach trees. Otherwise, there wouldn't be scholars frequenting it." Tao Junki didn't want to be left behind and joined in. Yes, it's rich in peaches and the peach forest is vast. Yang Chen nodded as well and gave Tao Junkie a confirmation. With that, the women talked one after another and went through almost all the things in the folklore and came to some conclusions. If there really was such an immortal peach, it should be in a place rich in peaches. In addition, there should be monkeys. In addition, there were two door-like mountains and maze. It seemed that it wouldn't be difficult to find such a place. Actually, there's one thing that you haven't noticed. It's the words of the people recorded in the legends. Yang Chen added a little more. In almost 3 legends, there are mountain people who have used a G tone when answering. This is a common rural colloquialism in the southwest of Bazhou. When Yang Chen said that, the women instantly became excited. If they could even confirm the location, wouldn't it be easy? It's not that easy, but let's go and take a look. Yang Chen stood up and then informed the servants to tell Gao Yu and the head of the palace. Then he rolled the 7 girls into the shuttle and quickly left Chunyang Palace. He had heard in the past that Yang Chen liked to read a lot of miscellaneous books, but he didn't think much of it. The 7 girls finally understood that Yang Chen had read a lot of miscellaneous books. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to find so many jade slips that recorded the same thing. However, no one had any confidence in obtaining this kind of information from folklore. But since Yang Chen was interested, they would accompany Yang Chen for a walk. It would also be good for cultivating their relationship. The speed was very fast, but even so, it would take a few months to get to Bazhou. The world was so big that it was by no means a simple matter of a few back and forth. During the journey, everyone was a cultivator, so they were not lonely. In particular, they all wanted to leave a good impression on Yang Chen. Naturally, they took out their own things to please Yang Chen. Tao Junkie even took out a few Taishanmen's cultivation experiences of fire cultivation masters for Yang Chen to refer to, which made Yang Chen very surprised. At this point, Tao Junkie seemed to be a bit deceiving her master. The sect master agreed. Tao Junkie didn't explain much. Just this one sentence was enough. It could be seen that the Taishanmen had attached great importance to Yang Chen to a certain extent. The Murong sisters took care of all the living matters of Yang Chen. It could almost be said that Yang Chen only needed to speak, and the Murong sisters would take care of everything else. Shi Wushuang was smart. Among the 7 girls, her cultivation was the lowest. Shi Wushuang was smart. Among the 7 women, her cultivation was the lowest. Although she was also at the peak of the nascent soul realm, the others were all at the great vehicle realm. In front of Yang Chen, Shi Wushuang also put away her pride as a fairy Qingmu, and very modestly asked Yang Chen for advice on cultivation. She knew how much Sun Qingxue, that little girl, had gained from Yang Chen. For this kind of consultation, Yang Chen naturally said everything he knew. Several things that Shi Wushuang had been puzzled about, Yang Chen was able to understand it. Even the wood attribute of the Murong sisters listened with relish. In this matter, Shi Wushuang took the lead and first left an impression on Yang Chen that she still needed Yang Chen's care. Unlike Tao Junkie and the Murong sisters, they were all in the Deshang stage. Naturally, they were embarrassed to let Yang Chen, who was in the middle Yuanying stage, take care of them. Understanding this, Tao Junkie and the Murong sisters were all secretly cursing the little fox in their hearts. She didn't look at herself, she was also in the peak Yuanying stage, 2 small realms higher than Yang Chen's cultivation base, but she still had the nerve to do this. Soon, the girls arrived in Bazhou in such an atmosphere. Yang Chen's shuttle flew along the southwest direction and not far away, everyone saw a peach forest. The peach forest was almost distributed for thousands of miles. The shuttle flew a few laps, and no one found anything like a gate. "Husband, did you not find the right place?" Shi Wushuang asked carefully. Yang Chen shook his head and suddenly found something. He flew in a certain direction, and then his body flashed and a person disappeared from the shuttle. On a mountain road that was not very smooth, An old woman was struggling to carry a basket of peaches down the mountain. Yang Chen's figure appeared not far in front of the old woman. "Grandma, how does this peach taste?" Yang Chen's voice passed to the old woman's ears, and the old woman found that Yang Chen had raised his head. "It tastes very sweet, soft and big. This old woman has been eating it for decades." Seeing that it was a rich man, the old woman put on a smile on her face and opened her mouth, which had lost half of her teeth, and replied, "This frame of peaches, can you sell it to me?" Yang Chen had a lot of copper coins in his hand and handed them over. Okay. Of course, the old woman was happy. She put the peaches on her back and the basket in front of Yang Chen, and then picked up Yang Chen's copper coins. She was so happy that her mouth was about to crack. As a mountain person, she had never seen so many copper coins. "Grandma, how old are you? How old are you?" Yang Chen asked again. "This old woman is only 96 this year." The old woman replied happily, "Not old, not old." Watching the old woman go away, Yang Chen's figure disappeared with a basket of peaches and reappeared in the shuttle. The scene just now was seen by the women in the shuttle, but they didn't know Yang Chen's intention. "Come on, fresh peaches, try and see how they taste." Yang Chen was very happy and put a basket of peaches in the middle of the women, indicating that they had a taste. Chapter 12:26. The group of fairies didn't understand what Yang Chen meant. Weren't they here to look for immortal peaches? How did it become about eating peaches? However, they couldn't go against Yang Chen's good intentions, so they could only each pick a peach that looked pleasing to the eye and hold it in their hands. Yang Chen casually took one out of the basket himself. The fire in his hand flashed slightly, and the girls saw that the fine hairs on the surface of the peach directly disappeared. Subsequently, Yang Chen didn't care whether his table manners were elegant or not. He picked up the peach and took a big bite, eating until the juice dripped. The taste isn't bad, try it." Yang Chen ate while persuading the 7 fairies. Everyone looked at each other, and it seemed that they had to eat. Although the peaches in the wilderness weren't necessarily very delicious, one good thing was that they weren't dirty. Everyone imitated Yang Chen and used their own methods to clean the hairs on the surface of the peach. Shi Wushuang was of the wood attribute, and the peach just happened to be of the same attribute. With a little spiritual power, those hairs gathered together. Then, Shi Xianzi stretched out her slender fingers and gently pinched that handful of hairs. Then, she opened her cherry mouth and bit it with her jade teeth. Tao Junqi and the Murong sisters, the one with the fire attribute, both used the same method, just like Yang Chen. However, it looked simple just now, but when they used it, they discovered that it wasn't that easy. Although the flames were also very small, they only followed the surface of the peach and didn't let go of the small ravine. While burning off the hairs, they didn't hurt the peach, which was not so easy. The 2 girls looked casual on the surface, but in fact, they carefully controlled the flames to burn off the hairs bit by bit. However, their time was much slower than Yang Chen's. Presumably, Yang Chen had just finished it with a shake of his hand, but they had spent at least 5 times the effort. Although this method was already an extreme display of fire control in anyone's eyes, it was very obvious that in terms of this, the gap between them and Yang Chen wasn't small. The other Murong sisters also used their own methods, and everyone easily completed the cleaning. They were all masters of the Deshang stage. Such a small thing was nothing to them. Everyone elegantly and beautifully took the first bite. After carefully chewing twice in their mouths, 7 pairs of beautiful eyes couldn't help but shine with a unique brilliance. Everyone saw the glint in each other's eyes and couldn't help but take another bite. After chewing a few times, they confirmed whether their senses were wrong. That's right, this peach was indeed delicious. It was sweet, soft, and juicy. It was a rare good peach. But this was not enough to surprise the 6 Deshang stage masters and a Peak Yuanying stage master. What surprised them was that there was a unique power in this peach, which belonged to the category of spiritual power, but it was very light. If they didn't reach their level, they couldn't find this at all. More importantly, this little bit of spiritual energy seemed to be able to replenish the source. Although it was only an extremely weak trace, it could indeed be replenished. The old lady just now, 96 years old, carrying a basket of peaches that weighed dozens of pounds, and walking on this mountain road like walking on the flat ground, what does this mean? Yang Chen's voice came at the right time. When the fairies tasted 2 mouthfuls of peaches in a reserved and elegant manner, he had already finished the one just now and took another one from the basket, as if he hadn't eaten enough. Husband, I'll do it. Shi Wuxuang was the closest, but she was quick to react. She grabbed the peach from Yang Chen's hand, and then quickly washed off the fluff. She didn't know where she got a jade plate from. She quickly used a jade knife to cut the peach into a few beautiful pieces, and then placed it on the table beside Yang Chen's hand. A set of exquisite small jade forks for picky fruits and another exquisite small jade plate were placed beside Yang Chen's hand. Then Shi Wuxuang picked up the jade fork, forked a piece, and personally sent it to Yang Chen's mouth. She said in a sweet voice, "Husband, please eat." Yang Chen swallowed the peach in one bite, chewed it a few times, and then asked with a smile, "Was what I just ate very unsightly?" "Husband is a man, don't worry about it." Shi Wuxuang said with a smile, "It's just that I heard my sister say before that husband likes the best of everything, especially when it comes to eating. You can't get tired of eating fine, so of course, I have to prepare the best for husband. Of course, as long as husband is open, you can eat whatever you want." As she said this, she had already prepared it for Yang Chen. Obviously, in Shi Wuxuang's heart, she really thought the same as Yang Chen. It was definitely unsightly to eat the juices dripping. However, Shi Wuxuang was a smart person. She would not criticize Yang Chen to his face. Instead, she used another method. She personally helped Yang Chen cut the peach, put down the tableware, and even personally sent it to his mouth. Yang Chen could not refuse her good intentions, so he could only follow her wishes. Didn't that bite just now make people feel comfortable to chew and swallow it slowly? Coupled with the last part and Gao Yu's intention, then Yang Chen would definitely be willing to accept her arrangements. After doing this many times, Yang Chen would also get used to listening to Shi Wuxuang's arrangement. "It tastes good, but Sister Wuxuang, using the jade knife will still make the peach stained with some metal qi. Why don't you use your natal flying sword to cut it? Wouldn't it taste better?" Yang Chen seemed to be very picky and directly made a higher request. Natal flying sword? Shi Wuxuang did not expect that Yang Chen would actually make such a request. He actually did not respect her and wanted her to use her natal flying sword to cut the fruit. What kind of weirdo would come up with such a method? Was she so cheap in Yang Chen's eyes? Shi Wuxuang suddenly began to feel sorry for herself, but Yang Chen calmly stared at Shi Wuxuang. The other fairies next to them obviously did not expect Yang Chen to say this. For a moment, no one knew what to say. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. "No matter how good the natal flying sword is, isn't it still for use?" Yang Chen suddenly said with a smile, "You are not willing to use it to cut this delicious fruit. Are you willing to use it to cut the disgusting flesh of your enemies? Maybe it is stained with highly toxic filth or something. Don't you feel bad?" As soon as these words came out, Shi Wuxuang suddenly thought of something in her mind. There was something shining in front of her, but it was always in a place where she could not reach out, but it seemed to be within reach. Things are things. No matter how natal it is not your own life. Yang Chen continued, "Use it when you need to use it. What's the use of always refining it? A treasured sword's edge is sharpened, it's not something that can't be used." Chapter 12:27. Shi Wuxuang finally understood what she thought of. Yang Chen's words directly reminded her of the key point. For a long time, Shi Wuxuang was a person with a slight obsession with cleanliness. This was not how annoying it was, as long as it was not to the point of going too far. On the contrary, no matter when she cleaned herself up, a beautiful woman would always be liked. But this character also made sure Wuxuang cherish her own life, flying sword very much. Except for life and death battles, she rarely used it. This life-flying sword was tailor-made by Shi Wuxuang's master. Shi Wuxuang cherished her life and would not use it for ordinary cultivation. How could she use the flying sword to do such things as cutting fruit? On the contrary, this somewhat limited Shi Wuxuang's cultivation, letting her stay at the peak of the Yuanying stage, unable to break this bottleneck and cross the tribulation. Shi Wuxuang was also a famous fairy in Yang Chen's previous life. Her life, even if Yang Chen did not deliberately understand, those who secretly admired her in their hearts would talk endlessly to Yang Chen. Yang Chen was very clear about her difficulties in cultivation. With a little poke, he pointed out the point. I understand. Thank you, husband. After Shi Wuxuang woke up, without saying anything, she directly took the jade plate to the side and took out another peach from the basket. After washing the fluff, the flying sword appeared and easily cut it again and placed it in front of Yang Chen. Go. We will watch the ceremony here. Yang Chen gently gestured to the outside and motioned Shi Wuxuang to go outside. In the process of calmly cutting the peach for Yang Chen, the tribulation cloud had begun to condense, and the sky outside was dark. The shuttle had already stopped in a place where there was no one. In the eyes of Yang Chen and Tao Junkie Murong sisters, Shi Wuxuang flew out of the shuttle alone, suspended in the air, and began to meet the fire tribulation that was about to come. They had long heard that the people around Yang Chen would be enlightened by Yang Chen from time to time. Before, the women didn't believe it. Yang Chen himself had just entered the middle stage of the Yuanying stage. Before that, his cultivation level must have been lower. How could he enlighten others? Only now did he discover that Yang Chen was just a simple matter of cutting a peach, and he was able to let Shi Wuxuang, who was at the peak of the Yuanying stage, comprehend from it, thus breaking through the bottleneck and crossing the tribulation. The other women looked at Yang Chen as if it was their first time meeting Yang Chen, so strange, so mysterious. Except for Yang Chen, everyone was a master of the Desheng stage, so there was no need to avoid it. The shuttle was wrapped in the sea jasper cup, so it would not have any impact on Shi Wuxuang's tribulation. Everyone watched Shi Wuxuang resist the fire one after another at a close distance, and Yang Chen was still doing something on the side. Oh, don't be surprised, such a good opportunity to collect some of the aura of the tribulation and use it to refine the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. Yang Chen didn't hide it from them. Anyway, it has long been announced that the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill could only be refined with the aura of the tribulation. At this time, it was normal to collect it. Collecting the aura of the tribulation, although the women were curious, they didn't ask much. Soon, Shi Wuxuang easily passed the fire tribulation and became a master of the early Desheng stage. Thank you, husband. After returning to the shuttle, Shi Wuxuang once again bowed and thanked him, but she used the posture of a concubine saluting the master. Although they now have Gao Yu's nod, after all, they have not yet married to Yang Chen, and for the time being, they dare not be his wife, they can only use the etiquette of a concubine. You don't have to be so polite, Yang Chen said casually. When the women heard it, they all thought that Yang Chen felt that there was no need to be so polite to a family, and their hearts were all faintly happy. When the concubine was crossing the tribulation, it seems that the tribulation broke a formation below. Shi Wuxuang then said, I don't know if it is the one we are looking for. Is there such a thing? Yang Chen was surprised for a while. It seems that I really have a big blessing. I just found a place for you to cross the tribulation, and I can happen to come here. Let's go and see. The shuttle disappeared, and the figures of everyone appeared next to the formation that Shi Wuxuang said was broken. Among them, the 5 Murong sisters were the ones who studied the formation the most, so naturally, they were the ones to evaluate it. Maze, but the effect of this maze is not to cover up the things here. One of the 5 sisters said. After carefully exploring the ruins of the maze, she discussed it with her sisters and said, "It should be in this direction." Without saying anything, she summoned the shuttle and rushed in that direction with the women. In less than 2 days, on the waterway of a large river, they saw 2 cliffs standing on the left and right, which looked like they were cut by knives and axes. They had been to this area before, but they had not seen these before. Obviously, the maze was cleverly hiding this part of the scene. The high cliffs, one on the left and one on the right, looked like 2 huge gates from the direction of Yangchun and the others. The river water circled there, but returned to the river. However, behind the 2 cliffs there was a rising fog, and no one could see what was inside. 2 doors? Yangchun said to himself in a low voice. The girls behind him were once again shocked by the fact that the folklore had been confirmed. "Go," Yangchun whispered, and the shuttle quickly rushed over the cliff and entered the fog. Although the fog was thick, it had no effect on Yangchun and the others. Soon, everyone saw the hill that should appear behind the 2 gates. On the hill there was a dense peach forest, and there were thousands of them. The strange thing was that all the peach trees looked exactly the same. On each tree there was only one huge peach, which was the size of a washbasin, and it looked very gratifying. Good luck. Looking at this scene, Yang Chen's face suddenly showed a smile, looked around, and suddenly asked, "You guys tell me, which one is the best peach to make up for the origin?" The women had been like a dream, and they couldn't believe it at all. Yang Chen really relied on a few folk legends to verify each other, and found such a legendary peach forest. If they hadn't followed Yang Chen all the way, they wouldn't have believed it at all. Was there anything more ridiculous and unbelievable than this? But in any case, Yang Chen did indeed find the place with everyone, and they also saw this unique peach tree that only produced 1 peach. But thinking about it carefully, how could such a treasure be found so easily by them? Those treasures that they had heard of before, which one of them was not found after a long time of fighting, and how many people died? The peach has a spirit, and each person can only choose one. Yang Chen's reminder came again. "How do you know?" Tao Junkie asked curiously. This was something that had never happened in legends. "It is engraved on the stone tablet over there." Yang Chen pointed to a direction on the side, and everyone saw a simple stone tablet. Chapter 12:28. The appearance of the stele was very simple, and it looked very majestic when it was carried on the back of Bien. There were a lot of patterns on it, and no one knew how long it had been there, but it did not look like it had experienced the vicissitudes of life. There were a few very old words on the stele, and it seemed that only Yang Chen could recognize them. The women didn't know any of them, but they knew that Yang Chen must know them, otherwise Yang Chen would not say that. Tao Junkie was even more clear that even the secret plane of the sect was interpreted by Yang Chen last time. This point, the Taishamen did not hide among their elders. Since it was recorded so on the stele, it was obvious that the original owner had already made arrangements. All the women understood the importance of good fortune on the way of cultivation. Of course, this was also a test of their eyesight, so after a pause, they all looked at Yang Chen. "Husband, which one do you choose?" Murongji asked. Up to now, Yang Chen actually couldn't call out the names of the Murong sisters. There was no way around it. In his previous life, the Murong sisters were famous in the world as sisters, but not many people knew which one was called, and Yang Chen was no exception. Up to now, they had not been formally introduced. "I chose, there is no place for you." Yang Chen smiled and gave them such an answer. The 7 girls all understood that this was because Yang Chen was already sure, and letting them choose first was just to let them exercise their eyesight. No one said much. Everyone walked into the peach forest, and began to release their spiritual awareness to explore one by one. However, there were thousands of peach trees and thousands of peaches. It was indeed a bit difficult to choose the best one out of thousands of peaches. Tao Junkie could be considered a hot-tempered person. Without saying a word, she rushed to the center, which was also the highest point. She picked the biggest peach tree and plucked the huge fruit from it. As soon as the peach was in her hand, Tao Junkie's figure seemed to disappear involuntarily, and no one knew where she went. The women were shocked and immediately understood why Yang Chen said that they could only choose one. Turned out that if they got it, it would be passed away. Even Tao Junkie, who had the highest cultivation base in the late Deshang stage, could not resist it. Legend has it that there was a fisherman who got lost in the peach forest. When he woke up, the peach forest was nowhere to be found. It was probably the same reason. No one could help them in this matter. Next was Shi Wushuang. She flew up into the air and saw the reddest peach. After choosing it, she also disappeared. On the other hand, the 5 Murong sisters discussed for a while. Everyone released their divine senses together. They didn't start with the peaches. Instead, they started to examine the peach tree. Finally, after looking around, he found 5 peach trees that were growing the best. He took a peach from each of them and disappeared from the spot. All of the women who had disappeared were now gathered in one place. Only Yang Chen did not appear. Everyone looked at the peach in their hands, and they didn't know if it was the best peach. They would wait for Yang Chen to come here, and then let him taste it. Although Yang Chen's cultivation base was the lowest, in this regard, all the 7 fairies were willing to admit defeat. Not to mention that Yang Chen only used some folk legends to find such a magical place. It was estimated that no one dared to say that Yang Chen was better than him in identifying medicinal materials. A 5th-grade alchemist master had such confidence. The women were waiting for Yang Chen, but they did not know that Yang Chen did not choose any peach here, but went directly to the front of the stone tablet and began to observe it carefully. From the front to the back, Yang Chen looked at it several times, and then a smile appeared on his face. His spiritual awareness was completely released. Yang Chen immediately discovered that this hill was simply one, without the slightest stratification of stone and soil. This time, it increased Yang Chen's judgment. Collect. He made a simple hand seal and cast it on the Bayan steel. Then, the steel lit up, and the Bayan below seemed to have come to life and started running crazily. Yang Chen didn't care, just stood there and waited quietly. Soon, the Tao ran to a place and drilled into the ground with the stone tablet. Then, the whole hill began to shake. Rumble, the mountain kept shaking, and all the peach trees began to drop their leaves and melt into the ground, using the branches and trunks. Soon, all the peach trees disappeared from the mountain. The small mountain finally revealed its true appearance. It was a huge peach tree. For some magical reason, all the branches and leaves were clumped together, like a solid hill. Now all the branches and leaves began to stretch out, facing the sun, showing a vast expanse of green. The South Pole Immortal One's peach pit was thrown here by the old man's crane demon. After tens of thousands of years, it finally grew into a complete immortal peach tree. Then Yang Chen pretended to find the place from the hidden folklore, and then it fell into his hand. The huge immortal peach tree was transplanted into the medicine garden space by Yang Chen. Although the size of the immortal peach tree was already very terrifying, it was not a big problem for the medicine garden space. In Yang Chen's hand there was a peach that was not too big, only the size of a human head. This was the fruit of this huge immortal peach tree. It looked inconspicuous, but the life essence contained in it made people salivate directly. Zhu, if your body can integrate with this immortal peach tree, I don't need to say more about the consequences. Work hard. Yang Chen said to the tool spirit Zhu of the Pure Bottle Medicine Garden. In the past, a Bai was integrated with the Blood Phantom Vine and the demonized Demon Vine. Now it was obvious that a Bai was stronger. With this immortal peach tree, Zhu must be able to catch up. It depended on Zhu's own efforts. Zhu was in the space of the medicine garden. She seemed to be singing and dancing happily. Even a Bai was happy for Zhu. Following Yang Chen as her master, she had never suffered grievances. The space was constantly expanding, and all kinds of medicinal materials were desperately filling in. This was what a master with a lot of money should do. Not to mention that a Zhu and a Bai were integrating with the immortal peach tree. Yang Chen's figure flickered with the immortal peach, and came to the place where the 7 girls were sent. Even the entire body of the immortal peach tree was collected by Yang Chen, so the place of transmission was naturally very clear to Yang Chen. Seeing the appearance of Yang Chen, the eyes of the women unanimously looked at the peach in Yang Chen's hand. Why is it so small? The women were shocked. The peaches in their hands were all the size of a washbasin. Only the one in Yang Chen's hand was only the size of a human head. Compared to everyone's, it was obviously a lot smaller. Could it be that the smallest was the best? "Husband, is this the best one?" Shi Wushuang immediately asked on behalf of everyone. Chapter 12:29. "That's right," Yang Chen said with a smile. "Hubby, but we didn't find such a small peach when we were looking for it?" Tao Junkie asked immediately. "This peach is hidden behind that stone tablet and can't be detected with divine senses." Yang Chen used this to explain why they couldn't find it. It was actually behind the stone tablet. It should be right. At this time, everyone looked at the big peach in their hands again. It was as dazzling as it could be, and they couldn't help but want to throw it away. "Don't waste it!" Yang Chen hurriedly stopped them. "This is your own opportunity. Don't waste it. It's better to eat it." Yang Chen's words were basically authoritative now. The women didn't hesitate to deal with it a little and put the peach into their mouth. The big peach tasted extremely sweet and seemed to melt in the mouth. With a small bite, the flesh inside seemed to turn into a sweet juice and flowed into the women's mouths. A powerful surge of spiritual energy directly replenished the bodies of the women. This surge of spiritual energy was continuous and surging, as if a spiritual vein had entered their bodies. Most importantly, this spiritual power actually had no attribute. It would automatically be affected by the cultivation technique of whoever it came into contact with. What surprised the women the most was that the speed at which this spiritual power was released was exactly the fastest speed they could absorb and refine at present. It was neither fast nor slow, it was just right. No wonder it was an immortal peach. It was indeed powerful. "This peach can supply you with spiritual power for 10 years, Yang Chen explained with a smile. "You chose it yourself. This is your opportunity this time. Hubby, can your source also make up for it?" Shi Wushuang looked at Yang Chen worriedly. The women recovered from the surprise. They didn't know if Yang Chen's source could make up for it. It seemed a little excessive for them to be so happy. "No problem. I still need to refine it for half a year at most." With that said, Yang Chen put away the immortal peach and sent it into the medicine nourishing gourd. That real immortal peach was no different from the one in the South Pole immortal Wang's hand, apart from the heat. It could completely increase a cultivator's lifespan. Just this one pill was enough to increase a person's lifespan by tens of thousands of years. Yang Chen could not bear to use it alone. Once he gathered the pure true fire, he would use it to refine the prolonging life pill. This was clearly the best method. Of course, if a Zhu could absorb and refine that immortal peach tree, she would be able to continuously grow immortal peaches in the future. At that time, Yang Chen would be the target that countless people would want to attach themselves to. No one realized that the small mountain had disappeared. They were now thousands of miles away from where they were. Even if someone came to look for it in the future, they wouldn't be able to find any trace of it. During this trip to find the immortal peaches, the 7 fairies no longer doubted Yang Chen's ability to find rare treasures. They no longer thought that the reason why Yang Chen could obtain these treasures was because of the guidance of a senior expert, or the records of a senior. It was a good record, but no one would have thought that Yang Chen could find such useful things in the miscellaneous books that he had always liked to read. In the past, there were people who learned to read miscellaneous books like Yang Chen, but they gave up after a period of time. It was useless. Now that they thought about it, they didn't learn the real skills of Yang Chen in reading books at all. Yang Chen still underestimated his appeal. On the way back, he was still besieged by people. The compasses that flowed out from the hands of the Taishaman were now very rare outside, but there were still some. These people had used these compasses to kill their way over. This time, Yang Chen did not make a move. It was the fairy junkie, the fairy Qingmu, and the fairy Murong sisters who did it. The 7 fairies of the Deshang stage, at this moment, faced with these people who had crooked thoughts about Yang Chen, everyone had no intention of holding back. On weekdays, the people of the 3 major sects were rampaging. When would they think about what would happen if their sects were implicated like Yang Chen? When they met, they would be killers, extremely ruthless. Especially the fairy Qingmu, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage and needed someone to help her consolidate her cultivation base. She was even more ruthless. The only 2 masters of the Deshang stage on the other side were surrounded by the 5 Murong sisters, and the formation was unfolded. There was no possibility of escape. They could only fight desperately, but in front of the formation of the 5 masters, they could only die. In just a few short exchanges, no one was able to leave alive. The 7 girls excitedly took the seized Qiankuan bag and came to Yang Chen to ask for his favor. The medicinal materials and pill recipes belong to me, the rest are for you to see. Yang Chen was not polite as long as it was something he was interested in, he later added. If there is a high-grade fire seed, keep it. The women agreed in unison, then began to sort and began to divide the booty happily. With their identity and the sect they came from, it was estimated that they had fewer opportunities to encounter this kind of unreasonable robbery. Everyone was in high spirit. Yang Chen got what he wanted, but there was nothing particularly good. There were only some relatively ordinary pill recipes and a few high-grade medicinal materials that might be precious to the masters of the Deshang stage, but could be discarded by Yang Chen. The rest were a large number of ordinary medicinal materials, but Yang Chen still accepted them. Husband, when you went out before, did you always encounter such a situation? Fairy Junkie asked in a low voice. The other women also pricked up their ears, waiting for Yang Chen to answer. Almost, since I had the questioning inner heart pill, it has been like this. Yang Chen also said helplessly. Later, after I sold the pill recipe of the questioning inner heart pill, it got better. However, it didn't last long. There were many people who wanted to know how I became a 5th-grade alchemist master, so there were more people chasing me. All the women were silent. In fact, even if they were close to Yang Chen, wasn't it for this reason? Of course, their main purpose was to establish a good relationship with Yang Chen. Relatively speaking, they didn't have to be so against their will. Husband, is there no way to solve it? One of the Murong sisters asked seemingly innocently. Yes, as long as I also publish the method to become a 5th-grade alchemist master, it will be fine. Yang Chen replied casually, and suddenly a brilliant idea flashed in his mind. Yes, I just need to sell the method to become a 5th-grade alchemist master, right? I can also make a lot of money. Husband. Sure, Wushuang was a little shocked. Yang Chen actually wanted to sell this. How could it not shock everyone? Do you really want to do this? Of course. The more Yang Chen thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. He simply said to the women, "It just so happens that you can also use your sect to help me publicize it. Just say that I will sell the method to become a 5th-grade alchemist master in 5 years. If the sect is interested and can pay enough price, each sect can send 3 people to Chunyang Palace to listen to my explanation.